Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our strategic planning workshop. Thank you all for being here bright and early. Thank you, staff, for being here bright and early. Greatly appreciate it. Anthony, is there anything that you would like to go over before we get started? I believe we're going into communications first. All right, let's get rolling. Ms. Strickland, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting me jump in here, and I'll try not to get us off track to start. I know we have the afternoon to ask a lot of questions, so I'll go through the pieces that were prepared. I will say that members of the Communications Committee have already heard several of these pieces, but I want to make sure the whole board hears it. So what I was asked to do basically is do a past, present, and future. So just for those who are new on the board or and we're not part of the budget process last year, it was mentioned 3 times in the budget document, the need for public information or a communications person. So these are just the three different times in the current year's budget. We needed someone to disseminate information, we needed someone to increase the information flow, and we needed someone to make sure we effectively deploy the progress that you'll hear about from the 2 people who are following me this morning. So one of the things that I wanted to include was during my interview, when it was done, the questions to me, I asked a few questions back. And I took those notes because I felt like that was the purpose and goal of what I needed to do. So I asked what could be done differently, because I know there have been other people that were assistant to the managers. I believe there were 3 of those, Bobby Williams having that, and then assistant manager, and then another person. There have been several people who have been in some form or fashion responsible for communication. So I asked what needed to be done differently, and the emphatic answer was, we need more. Then I asked what my day 1 first priority would be, and I love that response, and it was relationships. We need to develop relationships with our community, with our media. And then what was the focus? And it was actually Jackie Huffman who said, our community has a thirst for information. So that's how I came into the role. Those were the goals that I knew that I had been given. So I decided to start with what we had. And that photo was the best representation. The town of Huntersville had a lot of stuff, just like the shoes in your mudroom or your back door. So when I came in, I found 13 social media sites, 1 website, more than 50 email lists, and a communications database that varied by department. So everyone was trying with what they had and the resources that they had. But just like that photo, it was all just kind of there. So what I have tried to do is to put those in work and in process. So one of the fast things, I guess the easiest thing, was to touch the social media. We had a lot of sites. They weren't necessarily being utilized on a daily basis or some for a weekly basis. So it was not, I will say and admit, it really wasn't that difficult to get these metrics, because it just involved spending time on these sites on a daily basis, looking at them, seeing who the followers were. Now, the metrics here are just for the town sites. They do not include the ones for Parks and Rec. This is not HPD. This is not the fire department. These are just the town sites. While we're all part of the same family, these are just the ones that I have admin control over. So one of the things that I really wanted to point out is we have a lot of people who have said they want to hear from this community, from their leaders, from this town government. A lot of people have said, yes, send me information. So basically, we just needed to start doing that. So if you can just look at those numbers alone, the ones that I think are more telling, on Facebook, 146% increase in page visits. People are coming to our page now for information, or they're reacting to the information that we put out there. So again, it's engagement. People were asking for it. We just didn't have a way to get it out to them. The other numbers, I've been here, tomorrow will be 6 months. So these are 6 months minus a few days numbers for the increase. For Twitter, that's, a lot of people, that's where they get their information. Instagram is quite the challenge to use as a municipality, but it doesn't take much to realize that if I put out something, if I'm asked by HR to share one of their job postings, which I know was a question yesterday, and we put it out there, we get a lot of interaction. So we've had a lot of people in 6 months jump on and say, okay, we'll follow you on Instagram too. Nextdoor, we don't control those numbers because that's the neighborhoods register with the Nextdoor social media platform. The number that to me is important is the 158 engagements. Those are actual conversations that we have had with someone through the Nextdoor platform in the last 6 months. Not just, I mean, that can be anything from telling them that Charlotte Water says they have a water issue and they're going to lose their water for a few months, or a few hours, not months. Well, that's on the western side for the Jack that has to struggle with. But it's also, a lot of the thing is when planning or engineering says, can you please let a community know we're going to be out there, we're going to be at McElwain when we were asked to redesign some flow of traffic. That created quite the stir and engagement. So to me, it's not about the number that we can't control, it is about the number of engagements we're having. So people are communicating with us and they're getting information from us. LinkedIn is another thing we're trying to use to help spread the news from HR when we have job postings, because you can share and you can reach a lot of people in the professional. So those are just the easy metrics on if you just give it a little bit of time and attention, you can get the responses. So I think I read that to say that the community is pleased that they're hearing from us and they're engaging with us in that realm. I will just touch on this because really a lot of this was talked about yesterday. And since I didn't get to go yesterday, I don't want to, take your time on that. But social media, one of the things was the town said we need to update our policy. You did that. We updated it. There was a policy. There was some misinformation out there. So the town did have a policy. We updated it. It's more robust and it's more now in keeping with case law and state statute. The main thing for me was the rules of conduct. We now have some rules of conduct that every person that works for the town of Huntersville who is an administrator on any social media site has to follow these rules of conduct. And that includes, we do not delete. We do not do these things, and we do not do these things. And I think that's very important. So it just ties into the Archive social platform. I know that Attorney Sloop mentioned yesterday about public records. We have a platform, it's a third-party platform, and it's called Archive Social, and it archives every single thing that touches our town sites. Whether we do it or someone responds to us, all of that information is archived. So at any point in time, that is available for inspection if it's a public record. It can be used for litigation with the police department. It can be used in cases, things like that. So it's a very valuable tool. So it's not just when someone says, I want all the email records from this person to this person, which most people consider public records, but a lot of people communicate these days on social media and don't really think about that those are also communications that are considered public records if it involves the town or involves the elected official. So we do have that. And then again, just the public records, again, Attorney Sloop talked about that yesterday, so just please be aware. This is where I'd like to spend a little bit of time, and I know that I don't want to spend too much time this morning so we did get off schedule, but the website. The town has a website, and the platform is Civic Plus, and we have a contract with Civic Plus. Civic Plus provides they are known for their municipal and government websites. They are not a very expensive vendor. As a matter of fact, many communities use them because they are affordable. We have them. Cornelius has them. Davidson has them. Mooresville has them. So again, it doesn't hit the budget that hard. It's not very expensive. However, as I have heard in my 6 months here, and Janet has heard my groans when I'm working on the website at times through the cubicle walls, We would like a lot more, but that's a board decision because that's a finance decision. What I will tell you is our Civic Plus platform right now does include the new Civic Rec that Parks and Rec just added, I don't know, Tracy, time, not that long ago, for registration. Okay, so Parks and Rec uses Civic Rec for their registration of programs. The town clerk uses Civic Clerk for the creation and distribution of your agendas. So there's a lot of stuff that's tied into that platform. And as I've shared with the Communications Committee, there are many other options out there. But that becomes a financial decision because many of the options that are out there are twice the expense of what Civic Plus is. Now, I can say that we will continue to make updates, and I have shared with the committee, I will continue to use whatever platform this town enters into a contract with. But there are going to be limitations on our current site because of basically the limitations of the program that we offer and the template that we have. So that is, in my opinion, a finance and therefore a board discussion and a finance decision, so that we need to address that. We have a contract. We can only make significant changes to the looks of the website every few years because that's how the contract is. So we use what we have and we do our best with what we have and we make it better, or we look at some other alternatives, but it definitely will involve some additional money. So that's why I bring that before the board. An important part I do want to point out is Audio Eye. Audio Eye is really an addition to our website, and we added it in December. And it makes sure that we are in full compliance with ADA. And that's important. That's very important. I know later today we'll talk about maybe accommodations for board meetings. I saw that on the list. Well, one of the benefits of having Audio Eye attached to our website is when there's a problem related to ADA, it fixes it. Or it notifies me to say, you need to fix it. So it helps us stay in compliance with ADA. We did not have it before, and it's quite the challenge to make sure we go through all the pages and see what may or may not be quite right. It's a very large website, so I'll go ahead and jump into that next point. Our website has over 1,200 published pages. That's a lot. And I would say it's probably because so many people have rights to the website and everybody wants to get their information on, and everyone has done a great job in putting it out there. The challenge comes when everybody puts their stuff out there, it doesn't always connect. Just like if everyone on the board wanted to put certain things on the website because that's what you deemed as a priority, it may not all work together. So what we're trying to do is piece all those things together, but 1,200 pages is a lot of information, and it makes it, quite frankly, difficult to navigate. It's hard for the citizen to go through that website unless they have a routine and they know where to go and exactly where to go. But if you don't and you're trying to find something, it's difficult. It's very large. In the last 6 months, I have updated 300 of the pages. So if just take that time frame, that's 300 pages in 6 months. There's 1,200 pages out there. Some of those pages need to go away, and the analytics show that, and that's what we're working on. But some of those pages need to be merged. And the challenges, the way I understand it from Bobby Williams, is during the last refresh, the staff put efforts into making sure all the projects, and the town projects, and the engineering projects, and the sidewalk projects, and capital projects, all the projects were prominent on the website. That's a good thing. I would say, with the exception of no one thought about how all that fits together. So I can go to one page and get a town project, and another page and get an engineering project, and another page and get a Parks and Rec project. That's not how we need to have a website designed for our residents and our businesses. It all needs to be better on how that flows. So on the good side, that Civic Plus does have push notifications, so people can sign up and get notifications every time there's a new agenda. Or there's a job posting, that's a popular one, anytime the town posts a job. So there are benefits to this platform. It's very much geared towards government, so they understand the needs between a government entity and a for-profit entity. But the Audio Eye, I just wanted to highlight, it's a key feature. It keeps us in compliance. And I can tell you, within the first month, it had found quite a few things that we had missed, understandably so, with 1,200 pages. So anyone that has accessibility needs probably have the things that they need if they need a screen reader because they're visually impaired. If they need other things, they probably have that on their own, but there were parts of our website that made it difficult for even those to read it. So we've tried to fix those. So I think that's a benefit. It's a year-long contract, and it stays there. I can say that the Social Security Administration, some of the federal government sites also use Audio Eye. Okay.
Benefit but mine. In your experience, if we leave Civic Plus and go to vendor X or Y or Z, what is a likely budgetary amount we should expect? Is this 2,000 or 20,000 or six figures or order of magnitude?
Right now, just alone for Civic Plus, not counting Parks and Rec, not counting Civic Clerk, not counting Audio Eye, it's $8,000 a year. I recently had done this for another municipality, and we had quotes, and the quotes, most of them ranged from 15 to 20.
And that's just an annual cost,
That's-
not a redesign.
Yes, that's an annual cost.
So if we leave Civic Plus and go with a different vendor, that original setup and creation, that initial investment is ballpark how much?
Yeah, I was going to say 7 to 10.
70.
Well, 7 to 10 plus your annual fees, plus some of your other things. So it makes it difficult, and it's a long time. It's a 6-month easy, 9-month preferred process to change. So I bring that up to the committee, to the board, because if that's something you want us to do, we probably need to look at starting the next year, but it will take, excuse me, it'll take us a while to get there. Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, ma'am. I know Civic Plus is, as you said, it's only, what, $8,000 a year?
Yes.
But when you add in all the other departments that we have of it, what does that cost bring it to?
I think Patty sent that to us. I want to say it was,
I would have guessed 32,000.
Well, I think the Park and Rec one's like 16,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because they use it for more than just website, that's how people sign up to participate in it.
Right. I feel like that was.
So,
And that 32,000 is only 6 months worth of
Audio
audio
Eye,
And
yes.
that ignores staff time. And when we say we prepare agendas with it, Brian and Jack, I'm gonna need your help a little bit. We prepare also planning board agenda packets with it. Are there other agenda packets that?
and I
we
believe that's
use?
5,000. I believe that was the number, of 5,000 a year for that program attached to the,
40, 50?
so we're at $50,000.
With all the different components?
with every, excuse me, yes, with everything, yes.
All right.
So would those other websites include more than just the town one, or that's just apples to apples?
I would say you get what you pay for. The other websites would offer us more flexibility in and how we could design and work some of our programs.
I mean, could we combine Civic Rec and Civic, like,
Hopefully,
Civic Plus?
hopefully, it would be most prudent to choose a vendor, if we did choose to change, that could still pull in Civic Rec or something similar to Civic Clerk, because they are really add-ons to the platform, but they do somewhat work with other, they're like an iframe, and you can kind of insert them in. But what we would need to do is get actual quotes from the vendors. What do you offer? Because some of these vendors offer those features that we pay extra for. So until we actually decided to look into quotes to get the apples to apples, and to Commissioner Kidwell's question, until we could really go out there and look, we could say that, vendor A offers this for this price, but vendor B offers this with these add-ons so that we could truly get a value. I can just tell you, in my years of doing municipal websites, I've never found a less expensive option than Civic Plus. Is that an adequate way to put that? I've never
No, I
found
get
someone
it.
that is less costly.
But I think we get, like you said, we get what we pay for. Janet, how do you feel about your end of it, Civic Clerk? Do you think it's user-friendly? Do you like it?
From the point of staff, it's user-friendly. As far as the board portal and everything, I've learned from the commissioners that it's not very helpful to them. I've started looking at Peak, which we had before, and Melinda, I don't know if anybody else used it before, but you had an app, our legislate app, and I've reached out to them because I do know that some of the commissioners were more satisfied with that in the past. We had problems with them, and that's why we changed, and I actually talked to them last week. I had a phone conversation and a demo with them, and some of the issues that we were having on our end have been fixed. And that was one of the reasons we left, were ongoing issues with some features that they said they couldn't fix for us. But everything that I had problems with, they have now fixed. And so I am in conversations with them about getting pricing and looking to switch, because I think the app maybe would be easier to use for the board.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's costly and time consuming for you to make our paper packets, and I would like to use an app, but like you said, it is not user friendly. I threw my iPad a few times and was like, I just go back to the paper because it's not.
Well, and that's what we need to know, because I'd rather go to a platform that that you can use without creating, I mean, some of our agendas are 400 pages.
We have to get binders now.
Yeah, I mean, so if there's something out there that we can do some research on, you prefer to get away from paper, great, but I mean, some people like paper, and if that's the way we want to go, that's the way we'll go. So you just tell us, and that's what we'll do.
Well, that's something I do think that this board's going to have to figure out is what's their preference and what the majority of the board would like, because if, I'm sorry?
Holographic.
Oh, that, I'm in, game one. Commissioner Kidwell, you had a question?
Yeah, in our communications meeting, you brought up the version that we currently have of Civic Plus, and I'll let you go more into detail, but basically, what we have is like Windows 3.1, when everybody else is running Windows 11 or 10 or whatever version's out there now.
I will respectfully accept the commissioner's image on that one. We also have the contract we have with Civic Plus is also the basic one. They used to offer, well, I should say in the past, I've had a contract with Civic Plus and had the app that came with it. I know that's on the agenda for later today, but it came with the mobile app. So again, I think it's been, I will say, although I'm not in finance, the biggest policy document we have is our budget. And so that really would be a significant change if we were to look at something else, or if the board wanted, the managers to instruct me to get out there and get actual quotes so we could do apples to apples. But it would be, that it rests with the board's decision on budget. And I know Patty had some numbers, if you want.
Also, we use the Civic Plus, or whichever of Civics we use, to do planning and public works bulk pickup. Those payments go to that also. So we use it for multiple things, so we have to change all that over, but we do use it for bulk and planning.
So what we could do, Mayor, just sort of hearing the feedback, one, we could tell you what the total cost and what all the different apps are in there and what those costs are, to give you sort of a total nut, whether it's 50, 60, whatever it may be. And then, if you would like, with the communications committee, we could look at other options to bring back to the board and, for you to consider, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, whatever it may be, and see what's out there. And then maybe the communications committee can kind of mull through that.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask as well, is the board interested in at least getting some bids out there to see what the real cost would be, in addition to what we're holding, the whole nut, right? What we're spending currently. And I think that would give us an opportunity to kind of wade through all of the information. What's your thoughts?
When's the contract expire?
Month to month.
It actually, typically they are 3 years, and I'm thinking, yeah, 2024. But that does give us time to go ahead and bid it out, or I should say not bid it out, go ahead and get proposals, put it before the communications committee, then get to the bid out process, and then it truly can take, ideally it's a 9-month process. If you're changing vendors, it's not like someone's going to give, Civic Plus is going to hand us everything on a platform and say, here, go take it somewhere else. So it could very well, that would be almost an ideal situation if that was a direction of the board.
And it may be a buyout,
6 to
so,
9 months in parallel.
Yes, to make sure everything works.
Transitioning.
and there may be an out clause in there that has some small buyout. I haven't looked at it in a while, so we can look at all that if the board wants to go down that path. It'll take some time, and we can get it back to, run everything sort of through the communication committee and get you what you need to make some decisions.
What's your thoughts?
Let's find out.
Not a huge fan of upgrading and moving to a different.
Anyone else?
I'm good with it. Let's look into it.
Look into it?
At least want to see the numbers.
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah,
exactly.
let's start there and then move forward.
We'll work with the communications committee, we will get some numbers and actuals and some dates, pull all the files. I know you've been a Civic Plus customer since 2017. So moving on to email list. For those that don't know, and I mentioned it, we have a lot of ways to push out information where people have said, I want to receive it. But again, we have almost 5,000 people subscribed to our website, another thing to consider, that they get an email every time we put an update, or every time we post a job, or every time there's a bid posting. They've signed up for those things. There's almost 5,000 people who are on that list. But in Constant Contact, we have 28 lists, and right there, I just took a screenshot of Jack's closest friends, because that's just all planning. Planning has all of these different email lists. So I have the town board agenda, so every time we have an agenda, I put it in Constant Contact, and we have 457 people, I believe, on the I want to receive the town board agenda email list. So we have all of these in many different places. It's a matter of bringing it together. We'll say the open rate, typically 20% is a great number. So I celebrate the 49%. But that's because people have signed up and said, I want to receive it. So if Commissioner Munger has said, I want to receive it, it is more likely that he's going to open it when I send it to him. So our numbers are good on the email list. We just have a lot of them. Media list, I would just say it's been updated. Everybody had their own media list. I took them all, put them together, updated them, and sent them back out. So I don't think that one needs too much time, because I really want to spend time here. What can we do next? I've heard all of these, and all of these things are like on sticky notes around my cubicle, and they're all great, but they all come either with time, staff cost, or additional expenses. Well, not all of them, but many of them. We know that 150th anniversary is coming. We want to make sure that's a grand celebration. The town clerk and I serve as town manager appointees to Parks and Rec for that, because they're in charge of that committee. Social media, I'm comfortable with. Website, thank you for that direction, because I would like to go ahead and start pursuing that. We've talked about podcast. We have the equipment, well, I should say HPD has the equipment, so therefore we have the equipment. I've already spoken with Captain Vaughn about that. That's available to us anytime we're ready to start. We just need to do some planning and get those things in place. Presentations, one of the things I shared with the committee, communications committee, is I would love to create a templated presentation so that if you're asked to speak as an elected official, if you're asked to speak to the Rotary Club or the Boy Scouts or the middle school or whatever, wherever you are asked to go, that there would be slides available if you wanted to use them. It's not a script. It's not saying, here's what you have to say. It's saying, here's maybe 50 slides, and you can choose if you want a PowerPoint, you can go ahead and choose them, and then it's staff responsibility to keep it current, excuse me, keep it up to date. Videos. Love to do videos. We don't have the equipment in-house to do videos. So if we want to do videos, we need to budget that, and that would be an outsourced thing. We can, I mean, we just don't have the equipment in-house to do them. And for those who wanted, you know, who did watch the recording of your Saturday session, it took days on my laptop to render that file and get it up into the YouTube world. It took days. And guess what happens when my laptop's doing that? My laptop's not doing anything else. So it took a long time. But I would love to do some PSAs. I would love to do some other video options. But if that is something that the board is interested in, we need to talk about budgeting that, at least for now, as an outsourced product. Engagement, I'm all about that. Let's do it, please. And I will say my favorite thing, Huntersville 101 starts tomorrow. And I can't wait. And it was one of my favorite activities before, so I'm looking forward to being able to do it here. We had 48 people on the wait list over 3 years, and I went back because Bobby kept great notes and pulled them all and contacted them all. And of those 48, I believe 25 of them are in the class this year, and then all the new. So we have 15 people, and it's changing by the hour right now, but 15 people in tomorrow morning's class, and we have 19 in the evening class. And it starts tomorrow, and I'm excited, and I will thank you all for signing up to come introduce yourself. Mayor Bales and Commissioner Kovacs are the two that will be here tomorrow to welcome them to their first class, and then we will continue to move forward. But I'm very grateful that we get to have that for our citizens and to get that back started. And we'll be in here, and we will have the technology that we need, and we can gather. All the other pop-up events, community events. Give me a pop-up tent, I'll be glad for us to be there. Whatever it is, whether it's a planned car show, or if it is the growers market, or if it's a HOA, or if it's a block party. If we want to be there, let's be there. I'm all for that. We want our community to see you, to see our staff, to see the leadership, to know who we are, to be able to approach us, and not to have to come to an agendaed town board meeting where many people are intimidated because they don't understand the process, and then we throw in a quasi-judicial, and then they never want to come back. So to be able to be out there and do these types of things is just really important. It's one of my priorities, and I'm looking forward to that. So I know that there are a lot of suggestions, there are a lot of ideas, and so I guess maybe it would be best, I can take questions now, or we can wait until this afternoon to get back on track with.
Any questions? Y'all want to wait?
I've got two.
Okay.
I was going to ask what you do as a PIO, but you answered that. This is really good about getting the messages out to the community and everything, but what do you do with the older citizens that don't have apps and computers? We can't forget those folks.
Right.
So what's your plan for that?
One of the things I do have, in updating the local media list, it's unfortunate, I've been doing this long enough, that the written word is not as prevalent as it used to be. The newspapers, the printed local publications. But when I send anything out, it goes to our local media, it goes to the social media, and then we reach out to the communities that need it. So the pop-up events are also a great way to stay connected with folks who don't want to be on social, who don't want to worry about things that are out there. The other piece is, but again, to me, is we've been missing it. COVID, I will blame COVID for all communities. We've been missing the opportunity to be out there with people and to be in front of people instead of having to be virtual or having to be, away, distanced, masked. We've missed that. We need to get back on that. But a lot of the, I would say in the past, when we've had the local newspapers and they covered the local news and they knew who people were, and they didn't confuse people, and they knew who they were talking about in the communities they were talking about. I will still continue to reach out to our print and electronic media, but we really need to focus on getting out there and being in front of people. We need to be at block parties. We need to be wherever we're invited, HOA meetings, we need to be there. And you can see that in the growth of the Nextdoor. All that's a social media platform. It's still very community focused, and it's about my neighborhood. And you get a lot of engagement when you start talking about my neighborhood, because that's also where you get the NIMBYs for the meetings. But we need to focus on that one-on-one. And I don't mean 101, but the one-on-one. We need to be out there. We need to be at the senior things. We need to be in front of people and not behind a virtual, socially distanced setting.
Second
I was gonna throw in with that for Dan. That was a lot of the reason with the push.
I was asking for a friend.
Well, I'm answering for a friend. The YouTube thing, that was a big push because depending like what app you use now on Facebook or on your phone or computer, Facebook's trying to force people to create accounts to log in to watch stuff that's streamed. So we have very kind citizen who that kept happening to them, and people shouldn't be forced to create something to watch our meetings. So having the YouTube, now they just click YouTube link and you don't have to deal with the pop-ups and the begging you to join, like you can just watch it. So that was kind of removing a layer with doing that.
Well, again, there's a section of the community that doesn't get on YouTube.
Facebook, yeah, YouTube.
And there are people who live in apartments and want to be part of the community. I just want to be sure that we reach out to them. Are you talking about me?
No.
Not yet.
Did you have a second question?
I had two questions, what the
They were both
PIO
answered.
does, and she answered that.
And if I may, because I should have highlighted YouTube, my apologies. We are streaming today to Facebook and YouTube. The goal is to get to YouTube, because not only do we have technical challenges when we change locations, then you have Facebook challenges when Facebook goes down. But so we're streaming to both with the goal of moving all to YouTube. Yesterday we were successful in doing that, even without the sound in the morning. We were still there. But we're building the channel. We've had a channel. 2 weeks ago I started working on the back end. And now we have some videos that have populated our channel, so please go to Town of Huntersville NC YouTube channel, go find us. And that the goal is that we'll put everything there. So you don't have to worry about where it might be. You don't have to go to Boxcast or Facebook, or everything will eventually just be right there so that you can find it. You can still comment, so we're not taking any of that away. I think that was a concern by some, that if we get away from Facebook, yes, we still have the comments turned on, but please follow us. It will take us a while to build up. We have to have 100 subscribers before they'll let us name the channel, Huntersville. But we're going to get there. So, but please pay attention to that, because that is a goal, and that everything will be in one place. And then so I don't get text from the manager saying, could you please send me a link to that, and make sure I don't have to go through Facebook to get past all the ads. So that was one of the things that we really wanted to make sure we did.
One of the things I'd like for us to chat about for a moment is the community chats, because I would like for us to get to a place where we are also collectively in front of citizens. Well, and I don't know what that needs to look like. I'd like your input. I mean, whether that's a breakfast, whether that's a coffee, whether that's doing it pop-ups, we all just show up. I don't know what that needs to look like, but I want your involvement and your engagement, and I'd like to hear what your ideas are.
Not related to that, but.
Okay, well, thank you. Are you just like, really?
I'm sorry. Well, one thing that I keep hearing and consistent, and I think she kind of made a point of, but I want to draw attention to, is we do need the video equipment. It is going to be absolutely mandatory to be able to build content on YouTube and just get our message out there. I think that one I'm especially drawn to, and I think it's very important.
That was actually my other question, because the 150th is coming up.
Yeah.
We probably need to invest in that equipment sooner rather than later so that we're prepared and ready to go in order to encapsulize that year-long celebration. So it's something that needs to be on your radar as well.
So I had a question, and it kind of goes back to the website and all the various departments that are in it, and has a little bit to do with the planning department as well as on the calendar. Are we able to input when something is going in front of, HOAB to the planning department, and then, it's coming in front of the town board? Because I've had citizens call me and they're like, hey, I'm looking for this. Where is it on the process? And I'm like, that's a great question. Let's go try to navigate the website together.
It is a great question, because I had probably the same citizen ask me that question last week. She was asking could we put on the calendar on March 5th what the public hearing was on that date. The way the calendar module is set up, it's intended to just be make sure that you know this is coming.
Right.
However, Parks and Rec does a great job when they've held, especially the virtuals, and if Tracy needs to step in, when they've had their virtual meetings, it typically has some links on it where you can just go here. So we can look at it. The only thing is the agendas are not typically, prepared but a few days in advance.
Right.
So we would have to look at what we could possibly add to that calendaring event. I told the person that asked me the question, I said, really, all of that rests in once the agendas come out. But we can look at ways to maybe make it, how you've said it makes more sense with the flow. This has been up, and because it goes before
We have a schedule of things.
lots of people before it comes to the end, it might be a good way to try to track it, and I don't know, that would be conversations with these two as well as the town clerk to see if we could come up with a way. My response to the way she asked it was, like, not many people really want to know that, but the way you explained it makes a lot more sense. So, just so that we have the understanding that people want to know where they are in the process.
Can I get that recorded so I can share that?
It's
with my
already
wife?
recorded.
Yeah, but
The part about it makes much more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will clip that video out and send it to the masses.
Probably just to his wife.
So I'm going to circle back to community chats. I mean, I'm interested in what your thoughts are, what you would like to do, what you would want to participate in.
I like to show up to things, but they have to be on the weekends or in the evenings.
And that's
So
not-
coffee is not the
So-
one for me.
For me, it's got to be organic. If I'm able to attend, great. If I'm not able to attend.
So you're more of a pop-up.
Yeah, and
Okay.
not really scripted or anything like that, because
Correct.
I like to talk to people. I mean,
I do.
You get me talking, I'll just keep talking.
I do.
So,
What's everyone else? Because everybody's different. So it's okay if you're different, you like a different level of engagement.
Can you put some more hours in the day for me?
Sure. I can put some more hours in the day for me.
'Cause I think I'm out there. I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, showing up at things, at events. But if there's something else that we're missing, I'd like to know that.
Well, I'm retired, and I've already attended several chats and been invited to the school and been invited to Lake Norman Charter,
Right.
spoken at the middle school, so I'm always available. And I love to go out and present as a presentation to represent this town.
And I'm looking more at whether it's a mayor's luncheon, which I really would prefer myself for it to be more us. I don't necessarily need it to just be me. Or like Cornelius does, they do a virtual community chat in the mornings, where they've gotten hundreds of people that log in just to find out what's happening within their community. Those types of things. Let's continue to brainstorm. I think that all of it makes sense. We just have to figure out what works for not only us collectively as a group, but for us individually as well.
I mean, if you have a pop-up event or you have a tent at something, I'll be there most likely. Because anything, for the most part, Parks and Rec puts on in there. So you'll see me at them, so if you actually want me to join you at the tent, I will.
That would be great. What I would like to do is create a calendar of events. I know that Commissioner Phillips has already shared, there's an event coming up, and she shared with you. I would like to have a calendar of events and be able to put it out. And then if you think you can stop by and let me know, then we can push it out that if you wanted to stop by and meet, or just stop by and speak with, so that I don't want, aside from very structured events, I just want to be there.
Yes.
I want to stop by. We've talked to Lindsay about the growers market and being able to have someone when we have it on Saturdays, or even when we have it on Tuesdays over at the hospital, if an elected official has an opportunity to stop by just so that they can see who you are. The people who talk to you regularly know who you are, but there are 60,000 plus people in this community, and we need to be in front of them. So if here's all that's happening, let me know if you can attend. I'm all for pop-up. Let's be at Thursdays, and let's be at the car shows, and let's be here. And again, at night, in the mornings, whatever we can do, let's be there so people can see us and not just see us virtually. Let's let them see us in person.
And Lance just brought up that we should be doing a flash mob type thing too. So I think that's
Yeah.
a great idea.
I don't think that.
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm hearing is a lot of conversation around ideas for pop-ups and community engagement. Let's take it back, what you're hearing to the communications committee, and then really start documenting some ideas and getting us out there.
I think, we already have the Parks and Rec calendar for the year. Every big event, there needs to be a town tent.
Yes.
And we need to alternate out if we can,
Agreed.
1 or 2 hours each, and people can come up and be like, where's my trash can? And we can, you have a face and a name though.
That's right.
You guys don't have the luxury I have where I work with the public. So people come through my business, and I get the what's for, so I'd love to share some of that with you guys. And then I think it's cool too, doing that, because it disarms us, and that's a big thing for me. And that's where I've had such a good luck at life, is I'm in jeans and Crocs a lot, and that's when I am doing a lot of my work with the people in the community, and it levels the playing field. And I think us being able, even like community events and stuff, if we just, I like to volunteer, that's how I feel comfortable working with people. So even sending you guys to think about Loch Norman Games, that's a chance for us to be together with the public. Yay! But more things like that, we have big community things going on, why wouldn't we pay to have a tent at these events and participate? I see a lot of potential, because the only way, I wouldn't want to come here as a regular citizen. I never like coming here as a regular citizen. Well, you're a weirdo. But I just you got to meet people where they are, and that's really what I feel like the intent we're setting is.
It is the intent.
As long as it's not all on you, though, you can't be the only one
I
stuck
can't
in
be,
a
I
tent.
can't be there all the time, but I can certainly hold the calendar for that and make sure. But yes, for things that, if there's already Parks and Rec going to be there, that doesn't mean I have to show up, but I might want to show up, because for me, I would much rather be there than in my cubicle, and my job should be out there and not here. So let's do that.
Yes. All right.
Flash mob it is.
Anything else? We're done? Perfect. Okay, we hit questions.
We get
All right.
the engineering types now.
We'll have to get engineering out there with us in the tent.
Oh, there's a flash mob.
Oh, participating in the flash mobs. Yes. All right.
Just give it one more time.
Who's up first? Or are we
Tag team.
tag teaming it?
Okay.
And that's
All
why
right.
I just-
Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Try to jump in and go quickly to try to catch up. Some time. Morning, Steve Trot, Kevin Fox with Public Works. So a few things I want to go over with. A lot of it centers around projects. Projects, and we have a few other topics. Some projects we've completed last year and I'll say early this year. We've got Commerce Station, Gibson Park Drive, Woodward Street Extension, some sidewalk on North Cross Drive, and some street resurfacing. If you're not familiar with where those are, North Cross Drive sidewalk, put sidewalk on the west side of North Cross Drive between La Unica down to the Burkdale entrance there. Did Holbrook Street extension. That's the most recent project completed. That went from Marguerite Street over to the Aldi's parking lot with a local street there and some sidewalk. Gibson Park Drive between 115 and Main Street. Widened that street and added some sidewalk. And then for Commerce Station, finished putting in the sidewalk and street trees as part of that extension project. Also for resurfacing, which have resurfacing questions, Kevin's your person, but about 6.2 miles, not quite, I'll say a little less than 3%, maybe of the total street mileage was resurfaced in 2021 in various locations. Town roadway projects underway. There's a lot, maybe about 20 or so that are currently underway. Where are they? They're spread out all over town, north, south, east, west. There's projects all over the place that we're currently working on. Also, some resurfacing coming up. Again, another 2.5–3% of the total mileage upcoming for resurfacing sometime this spring, summer. We put together a project update list. This update list gets passed out by the manager and then put on the website every month. So you get to see, on the list, the stuff at the very top in gray. Those are the things that are completed. The projects are listed there, and any updates for that month get highlighted in tan. Try to let you know a lot of information all in one spot. So if you have questions on what's the status, here's where it is. It's a page and a half of data. Again, this is town-only projects on this. Later on, talk about the DOT ones that are also on that list. Some project challenges we're seeing. These are not unique to the town. They're also by other agencies and also the state. Time to relocate utilities. There's a cost associated with it, but there's also a time. And there's a time, this is nothing we have control over. We can ask them to do it and keep asking them to do it, but we can't go make them do it in a certain amount of time. We just have to stay on top of them to try to get them to do it. So that's an unknown amount of time that could take. Increased cost for right-of-way. So if you've bought a house or looked at home values in the past couple of years, they've shot up a whole lot. That's great. It means if you own a home, you have more value there. But if you're trying to buy, that means things cost a whole lot more. So when we're trying to acquire right-of-way, those costs have gone up significantly here over the past couple of years. Also, there's increased costs for construction. Just like when you go to the grocery store, you notice things have gone up in cost. Construction's the same way. Material prices have gone up, labor prices have gone up. And that's if you can get the materials that you want. There's also a scheduling challenge with that as well.
For the sort of what you anticipate or estimate in the 5-year CIP, that 30 million?
Okay, so last additional funding, that's the big one. So additional funding needed to complete projects already started. These are the projects that we've already begun. That does not include projects on the CIP list that we have not started. So that's the big bullet point so far. So,
I think,
and
I
those,
think to clarify, it's not projects that are currently in construction, but we've started the design work, or we've, so, right, they're in the design phase and/or construction, but yeah, we don't need 30 more million in just construction dollars.
yeah, to expand on that.
Either, you could use, but.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so to get into that one a little bit more, so, projects we started, they could have just started on the design. We haven't done utility relocation, right-of-way, or construction. Some of those projects could be about to start construction, and we project that we need more to be able to finish those out. So it's a large pool of things to try to finish what we've already started.
I promise you it's wrong, because until you actually get out and you bid that project out, there's no way to know what that number is, as you know.
Yeah, it's an estimate, and the earlier on in the project, it's more challenging to estimate what your costs are going to be for right-of-way and utilities and construction. Once, as Anthony said, once the project gets bid out, that's when you really know. And that comes at the very end, and that's the large cost on a project. If you have a project that costs maybe $1 million total, grand total for everything, that construction portion is likely 3/4 of that total cost. So you really don't know what that total cost is until you get right to construction. But yeah, that 30. So again, that's the stuff that we've already started working on. If we haven't started on it, that's even more. Future town roadway projects. So these are projects that are currently in the CIP list that we have not yet started. And where are those? This map here, so the stuff in the pink is stuff we've already started. The stuff in the orange are the potential projects, and the roads that are highlighted in blue are the DOT road projects. So there's a lot of information on this map, but where are those, I'll say, potential projects that we could start? Again, just like the rest, they're spread out all over town. A little bit more on those. 115 between McCord and 73. This was a project that we asked for money from CRTPO and were recently awarded that. This is a project we have not yet started. This is a great project to widen that to a 4-lane section. And that all the stuff I'm talking about here, that's not in that 30 million. This would be in addition to that, to do that. So this is all additional. No dollars have been spent on any of this yet. This would be additional need if we wanted to do these. Holbrooks Road, improving that between 115 and Central. Railroad crossing there, maybe adding some sidewalk and turn lanes. That's okay, sure. Sure.
Is the railroad putting any funds into improving that crossing?
With most town or state projects, railroad would put little to $0 towards the projects. I want to say it's over 7 figures we're having to pay for the Main Street project to do the improvements there, just for the railroad part.
With the sidewalks, would that be CB whatever grant approval? Do you think we could meet that for that area?
On this little section here?
Yeah.
And I would say stay away from it, because when you get the railroad and all those other entities involved, I probably got a better chance of getting Abraham Lincoln here.
Okay.
I mean, it's just.
I know, guy.
It is, it's tough.
Yeah, there's a time and dollar challenge when working with the railroad. I'd say there's also a time and dollar challenge when applying for federal monies to do the projects. When you apply for federal monies, you typically extend that project delivery timeline, and you pay more for that project because you have a lot of extra documentation and steps to go through to be able to deliver that project. And those costs can be significant. If it's a small project, that may significantly increase the cost to deliver it and the time. You may be able to do it quicker and cheaper. You're likely to be able to do it quicker and cheaper if you just use your own funds.
To that area, what's the, and I already know the answer, but what are the other challenges to extend it around that area, extend the sidewalks out through Central?
Sure. So that's something we can take a look at more. I'll say one of the big challenges to sidewalk projects are right-of-way. When you are putting sidewalk in front of, say, a lot of homes, and have a couple of examples later in the presentation of possible projects. If you're putting it in front of, I'll just say Delwood Drive. Delwood Drive doesn't have sidewalk. There's a lot of individual parcels along Delwood Drive. There's likely not right-of-way. So you have to go acquire property from a lot of different parcels to be able to put in just sidewalks. So time and money to do that, it's
issue over there because everything is ditch bank, for lack of a better term. So the way you can kind of maybe shorten up your footprint of right-of-way, even though you're still going to have to get right-of-way, is it may be put curb and gutter right up, curb and gutter and put the sidewalk right up against it is probably going to be your best bet, because trying to get behind the ditch in those yards, some of them, the topo is so, some of them are steep, some of them will be up near the front, front porch, and those kind of issues. So it would be, you'd almost need to go with, have some sort of sketch plan, preliminary plan, if you want to call it, and go out there and meet with the citizen. Because what you don't want to do is get out there and, let's say we got 2 people that want to donate and or sell the property, and then the next 2 beside it say, no, I want you to buy my whole house. And then you run into, well, I can put a sidewalk there and skip 3 houses and put a sidewalk there. So you'd almost have to have a holistic plan. And we're seeing that on some of the projects, one that we're working on now, well, a developer's working on it, and the folks are saying, no, I'm not giving you the right of way, we want you to buy the whole house.
Commissioner Partee?
Yeah, my question is concerning the sidewalk. Now, growing up in an urban community, sidewalk primary purpose is to increase pedestrian traffic, pedestrian safety from traffic, and also assist businesses around the area to increase the pedestrian businesses. Now, I'm looking at this area, particular area, there's not, and I travel past Holbrook Avenue, there's not that much pedestrian traffic to have access to sidewalks. So would it be practical to put a sidewalk in an area that's not going to get much use?
Personal input, there are a lot of folks from that neighborhood who walk to the bus stop that's out there at 115, and it's a very congested area. I have had an unfortunate incident where I ended up in the ditch.
Yeah.
To avoid a car, which I'm really going to laugh out of. But it's similar to the Hamburg Road area. There are a lot of folks who walk from that neighborhood to that bus stop. If we can put them on the sidewalk, that's one less person that
Okay.
can get hit.
You answered. Asked and answered. Thank you.
And when we look at projects, there's some road improvements to do through here, rail crossing improvements. When you're looking at all that together at the same time, what would it cost additionally to add sidewalk to that? If you're out there and you're going to touch it, do you go ahead and put in the full section? Or do you say, okay, we're going to do a little bit now. All right, now we're going to come back again and get a little more right-of-way to do it again. Oh, we're going to come back and do it a little bit more later on. What we prefer to do is go do it once and do everything all at one time.
I know the area, and I know that it's you need a holistic approach to that, and maybe a sketch plan to go out there, but I think it's worth the time to do that. And then, if we do have, let's say there's 10 homes, and 2 people said, I'm not doing it, then you can say, hey, listen, we're going to build a sidewalk to here, we're going to build a sidewalk to here, but your 2 neighbors here, they don't want to be a part of that. Let the neighborhood handle that, let them apply pressure, let them say, well, that's their property, they don't want to do it, fine, and we just have to scoot out from there.
Let me ask this quick question. With this particular project, and we're talking improving the crosswalk, or the railroad crossing, increased turn lane storage, sidewalks, are we also talking curb and gutter?
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. What these are is just, hey, here's a general big picture of what we're thinking right here.
Okay.
We haven't done any preliminary engineering work. We haven't done right-of-way research. We don't know, we haven't looked at these in depth a whole lot. It's a potential, we see a need, and we see it as a potential project.
And I don't disagree with you at all. If you're only doing that section, and we're also looking at potentially curb and gutter, what does that look like from a stormwater perspective for the rest of the homes around that, right? Because it's one thing for that rain to hit the asphalt and come into a curb and gutter. It's another to hit it in a specific location that then spreads out. You know what I'm saying? I'm just,
Yeah, we have to take a
don't
look
want
at
any flooding in someone else's neighborhood, in someone else's yard. I guess is
Sure,
my point.
yeah. When we do a project, we don't just say, we're going to do our project and then put on blinders and not see what those impacts are nearby. This is also adjacent to the Church Street project to extend Church Street to the north that we've already started, so.
It's a small project, but this project will be super expensive. I promise. This will be a high dollar project. You can go small, high dollar project because of railroad and various things you're going to be dealing with there. You'll see later on, it's a high dollar one.
Yep. And again, these are projects that are either in the CIP in a future year. Again, these are ones to consider. Do we want to get started on these? So I have a list of about a dozen or so. Huntersville Concord Road between Walters Street and First Street, straightening out that curve. If you drive through there and you meet a tractor trailer truck, you have to get out of the way to be able to get through there. Sure.
Property possibly is under contract? Do they know that we're doing this?
The property owner, I reached out to the real estate agent, sometime back when obviously this was a project on our list to say we may be interested and based on previous board feedback. And our number didn't match their number. And they said, we thank you, but no thank you.
Is well aware of this project. We've met with them.
Yeah, and I know, planning's talked to them, et cetera, so.
It's just.
They would have to disclose that to whoever's purchasing that, I hope.
So, not a real estate agent.
As a realtor.
What about the gun range?
Should,
He just
We've got a gun range problem, but they didn't do it.
And I don't know,
That was
Emily,
the builder and the realtors in that neighborhood. Well,
so it'd be interesting, maybe a question, I'm gonna throw it, Emily here. Emily, if they come in for a development, can we, they come in a single-family home as it is now, but if they come to do something different, can we encourage, I don't want to say force, maybe not be the right word, but can this line on the map mean anything, I guess is what I'm saying? Can they go ahead and build it? Can they build a building right in the middle of the line, in the middle of that map if it's a use by right?
So we have the ability to require planned roadway projects to be taken into consideration for future development.
Even if it's a use by right that, Jack, I'm just kind of,
Yeah, if somebody walks in the door for a permit, we'll issue the permit. Period. If it's a subdivision, we can look at thoroughfares. This is not on thoroughfares. This is a line that was reclaimed. So one building, one lot, we have to issue a permit. The only way we can influence something is if it is on a thoroughfare plan and it's part of subdivision, and we can require them to acknowledge that in the design round.
just wanted the board to kind of know that and hear that.
Do we have any knowledge of who might be buying this?
Emily, does the map act have anything to do with this? Yeah.
But like I said, it does have to be planned, it has to be on a plan to require them to take it into consideration. If it's not something that's actually formally on a plan or, funded, then no. But there is a case from the North Carolina Supreme Court that says that you can require planned roadway projects that are on plans to be taken into consideration.
Again, we have not done the design on this project. We have not started work on this project. So if you really want to know what's needed and how much you need and what the plan is, you need to get started on the project. And these are all potential projects. They're on the CIP, but they're currently not funded. Walter Street between Huntersville Concord and 3rd. Upgrading that and extending the street would connect into Vermillion Village, which I believe is getting ready to get started moving forward. Church Street realignment. Again, we're kind of in the same area with multiple projects. Realigning Church Street to Walters. So as part of the Main Street project, Church Street at Huntersville Concord Road is not going to be a through street anymore. It's going to become right in, right out, because there will be a median on Huntersville Concord Road. So to connect back in, get your a network here and give you options, proposing to connect between Walters and over to Church. Hager's Road realignment. This would be fixing the curve a little bit there at Hager's Road. Now for this potential project, there's actually a couple developments. One, Spring Grove on the south, and potential industrial development on the north side. This is a project that's likely going to be taken care of by private development, hopefully here over the next year.
The Huntersville Hardwood site?
A roadway plan has been submitted by that development.
Okay.
Site plan has not at this time.
It is, but that project's by right, correct? Correct. Okay. I just know that Northstone folks had reached out to me, and I told them I hadn't seen the project yet. So once it's submitted and we know what's happening, I would like for us to go out there and just update that community so that they know what's happening.
Well, let's get with Kim, because what happens is it is a very public process for a subdivision sketch plan.
We understand.
There, is that better? So this had a conditional rezoning, so that's a very public process that we went through, right? So we invited the public, we sent notices.
No,
It's by right.
Huntersville.
A hardwood site?
Yeah, that's by right.
So that's a by right. So here's the issue, though. I mean, what are we going to do to get the word out to the public? So that's the point. There's no public process. We process 1,000 permits a year in our office. Which ones do we say, oh, this one you need to know about? So I'll just ask you to get with Kim and talk about it. We do have on our website, if you go to the planning department website, you will see the very first thing that pops up is project map. So that was one of the things we did to try to get the word out. If somebody clicked on that site, they will get to the details of the plan. But you're asking for something more proactive to get the word out to the public, so.
Coming to me, I had Northstone residents asking me, I didn't know about this plan. There was no plan on the map at the time, so I had no information to give them. I just want to make sure that we're communicating to them so they at least understand what road improvements are going to happen with that by right project.
It has not been submitted yet?
To my understanding, as of the end of last week, there has not been a site plan submitted, so we can't share what we don't have.
And that's my point.
Because this right here doesn't tell you anything, so what is supposedly going on out there, like I say, we haven't seen a plan that's been submitted, that's why things can change. But they're looking to do a roundabout right there, and then basically connect up through the back of that property, up towards 73, what's that little side road? Parr Drive. So that's what we think they're going to propose, but we haven't seen a submitted plan yet that we can, but we will. We can definitely make that happen.
Okay, perfect.
So as we, and I know we don't have a plan or anything, but soil supply, that road right there, those trucks coming in and out of there, pretty heavy, so you're putting a roundabout right there.
That's not a road, that's an easement back down there. So, and we know.
Well, I'm not talking about.
Yeah, the roundabout.
We have 4 things going on here, so we're coordinating, Steve's doing a great job with this, by the way.
So.
The subdivision to the south is accommodating for the Church Street extension through there, so that will help that transition.
So if a roundabout, which is included in the plan that has been submitted, okay, so there has been a roadway plan that has been submitted for improvements along McCord Road.
Okay.
That'll be on the website, as Jack mentioned, on the planning department website for development projects. that information will be out there. So when a developer submits a plan, that gets added to the website. And I'm looking at these guys because that happens in planning, to add it to there. That information's out there.
Okay.
A site plan for the site has not been submitted,
Okay,
okay?
two different things.
So, and I guess to clarify, if a roundabout, that's what was submitted, that roundabout will have to be designed to accommodate all the design vehicles. So if that's an industrial site, again, don't know, assuming that's an industrial site, because that's what it's been, and it's a state road, they'll have to be able to accommodate the tractor-trailer trucks that go through there. So,
Which will have the new project that has been on, what's the Business Journal or whatever, that was in there?
Yep.
Yeah,
It will have trucks.
Yeah.
So it will have to be able to handle trucks at roundabout.
yes, so it will be able to accommodate dump trucks, tractor-trailer trucks, all of that. Just like the roundabouts on Main Street. The ones on Main Street are not for cars only. They're going to be able to handle the
I might have missed something, but if you go to our website and you pull up this site, you will see the street design with the roundabout.
Right.
You'll see that.
It wasn't there in December.
It just turned, it was
It was turned in January,
Right.
so yes.
It's pretty recent. All right, another potential project, Hambright and Mount Holly Huntersville intersection improvement realign. Just like the last one, there are multiple developments that have to make improvements at this intersection for committed improvements. I know Beltway 77, Thrive Athletics, Statesville Mixed Use, and there could be additional ones. So this could be one where private development takes care of an improvement project at the intersection. Beatty's Ford at Neck Road, again, adding some turn lanes, making some safety enhancements out there. Beatty's Ford at Cashin Road, same thing. There's no turn lanes out there. You've got a high-speed road, so if vehicles have to stop to wait for traffic, then
Why would you guys go to Cashin Road and not Stevens Road?
See that? Your wish comes true.
It only took 30 years. I'm so happy.
Well, again, these are all potential projects, so none of these are funded, so if these are, I guess, the feedback at the end, once we get to these, and what I believe management would look, is which ones of these do we want to try to get started on? Because when you start on a project, the next month, they're not delivered. Okay, these take years from when we say go and you provide money. It takes years to get from start to end, anywhere from 2 to 4 years. If you're dealing with the railroad, it may take longer. So if you want these projects, that's the feedback that I believe they're looking for.
And then when you'll see where these sort of fit in the CIP and the timing. And as Stephen said, I mean, to get shovel ready, it's, minimum on these two, usually take 3 years.
So those two already have questions, if it's okay. So the monument at Neck Road, I don't know if that's historic. And then at Stevens of 80s Fort, there's the rock wall, which I think was built about the same time the wall was built at Hopewell Church. I'm not 100% on that, but would that be deemed historic, and are those things that we can avoid messing up?
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at these. Again, with all these projects, we haven't done any survey work, official property research other than what you can find on Polaris. So once we get started on a project, that's when we find out.
Okay.
And even as we get into construction, we find out more things.
And that threes can turn into 4s and 5s. When you run into curveballs like that, sometimes we'll find that out at the beginning when we get started down that path.
And then we find the utilities that aren't marked and are out there buried once we start digging too. So there's just a couple more. Again, these are potential projects to get started. Birkdale Commons Extension and Oliver Hager Extension, private development is proposed to do the northern part of this connection out to 73. This project would extend it further south and then connect up to Birkdale Commons Extension. In same area, Irvin Cook Extension. I believe this is out near the fire station or a possible fire station that was potentially talked about. So there's not a public street here now. This would create it to a thoroughfare standard. And then lastly, upgrading Irvin Cook the rest of the way down, and then probably adding some improvements out there on Gilead Road. Again, for this one, a potential possible private development may do some of this work. I don't think anything is official on that, but I know several years ago, a development subdivision was discussed, and I want to say they went through the public hearing process and then backed out at the very end. I would guess this is going to develop sooner or later. Okay. So this one's coming back up again. All right, that's the roadway projects.
There's one I felt like was on previous one that I did not see. Gibson Park Phase 3.
Yeah, Gibson Park, we don't have a project there.
I know, but there's an additional one.
Yeah.
To take
Three.
From Church Inn to.
3 hadn't made the list yet, but that may.
If that's one you want us to add to the list, then we can.
Big fan. Church Inn to Vermont, essentially.
It's, actually, the Gibson Park Phase 2 goes from Church Street over into Vermillion. Just part of the way.
The
And if you
first
wanted-
connection into Vermillion.
That's correct. Yeah, the first street in Vermillion.
Okay, I just know that there was a phase 3 somewhere out there, and that's what we're interested
Yeah.
into the other entrance.
That's not on our list. If you want us to add that to the list, then we certainly can.
So we'll put that one as a note, and obviously, there's a lot on there that obviously is in a future year or whatever that, unless we do something different, it'll take a while to fund it.
All right, so we went through roadway projects. Again, if you have some ones that you didn't see up there, or you have questions on, let us know. We can work to add it to the list or get you some more information on. Town sidewalk projects underway. Got about 10 or so sidewalk projects. Some are as small as just in front of one parcel. Others are much longer. So we're.
I want to say, not to interrupt, but I remember, last year, the board was, and you see a lot coming out of Parks and Rec, and citizens asking for connections, sidewalk connections, et cetera. The board was gracious enough to allow Kevin to bring some folks in-house to, get started on sidewalks. Sidewalks seem easy. It's not, most of them now are sort of like roads. There's got to be right-of-way, you're dealing with the utilities, et cetera. So there are not many easy ones out there, but the same with roads. What we're doing is a process, to get things started. You saw a few that they finished, and now you've got a bunch starting down the design and the build, and now you're going to see a lot more of these boxes on the map, just like you saw roads. So we are getting things shovel-ready to start pounding away at sidewalks.
And are any of these, are we working through the ADA compliance with these projects as well?
I think you guys must have read our presentation before we, because you're hitting some stuff that we've got later on.
Okay.
So if I could talk about that, we have
Okay.
several slides on
Okay,
ADA
perfect.
compliance. Yeah, so these are sidewalk projects that we're in various stages on. Some are either just getting started on construction, other ones are just maybe getting started on design. So they're in various stages. Again, they're spread throughout town. Maybe a real short section, it may be, a few hundred feet of sidewalk that are out there. So again, we're just getting started. These are included on that monthly project update list. So the status on those are again, we keep up to date with the ones we've started. Some potential ones, what we did was we looked, I want to say a year or so ago, where are some gaps in sidewalks? Where could we connect people to places, schools, businesses, parks? So we have a short list of ones. Again, these were presented, I want to say about a year ago. Where are they? They're spread throughout town. And I've got a slide on each one of these. In the same kind of format as before, the ones in the magenta color are ones that are underway. The ones that are in orange are the potential ones to add. So where are they? So a potential project is on 115 between North Meck High School and Blythe Elementary. If you've been out there's a gap between the schools, and there is no sidewalk there. There's a road there. That road was improved, but there is no sidewalk in that gap. Delwood Drive, this is one mentioned earlier. This is a potential project. A lot of parcels impacted as part of that. So it's a potential project. I think it'd be great. It would connect Vermillion over to Church Street. if that's something. So I guess the feedback we're looking for, are these projects you want us to fund and look to fund and move forward with? You want us to keep on the list, do some other time? That's the kind of feedback, once we present all these,
And
that I think we're looking for.
Stephen, once we get to this afternoon and we really start looking at the dollars, well, then I think you'll get a better answer.
Sure. So we've got slides on all these, again, just to give you an idea of where we're talking about and the area that we're talking about. Stumptown Road, between the United Methodist Church and Shepherd's Road, this would connect the subdivision over to other sidewalk that's already out there along Stumptown Road on the south side. Huntersville Concord Road. This is a really large area. It'd likely need to be several different pieces, or done in parts. If you want to do a project of this scale, long time, lots of dollars, but that's potential. There's already some sections out here, so it's kind of piecemeal. So this would be, trying to connect all that all together. North Cross, Stumptown, Hugh McCauley. There's already sidewalk on the east side. Potential project could be to add it to the west side, and then on Hugh McCauley to get that connection in. Ranson Road between Hudson Reserve and Torrance Creek Elementary. You've got some new subdivisions, on the north side, on the east side, to connect down to the elementary school. That's a potential project. McElwain, McCoy to Henderson Hill. So there's not sidewalk that connects along McCoy right now, but we have the Huntington Green sidewalk project. So this will be, I'd say, an extension of that project, a project to think about what's next, what can I add on to make a connection over to a neighborhood, to connect over to the Huntington Green sidewalk, and then also the two intersection projects at McCoy and Hambright and McCoy at McElwain. So this is kind of a, hey, what's next? Once we do those, what should we think about next to extend that?
Is there any inherent advantage to, you're already in the neighborhood, you're already laying down the sidewalk? Can we just extend it? I mean, in my head, there might be a minor cost advantage. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there would be some benefits. If you're out there building, if you've got a project that's literally right next to it, there are some to that. With the Huntington Green sidewalk project, there's a different funding source. We're using federal funds on that. So if we wanted to do a separate town project at the same time, maybe keep track of those separate, and then when you go to construct it, maybe bid those out. Have separate bids at the same time. That's something we can certainly look at.
And you just won't be able to muddy the waters with the CDBG. That's what makes that one complicated.
Sure.
But again, thought it was a great project. You're already doing a lot of stuff here, maybe being another little segment to it. So that's the list of possible sidewalk projects. So again, mentioned we're going to hit where the numbers fall later on today. There's also many NCDOT projects in town, all in various stages. Yes.
With the downtown steering committee meetings, they're talking about the need for walkability. I think it's the #1 topic, and safety for walking. How does that play into the sidewalk plan and people saying we need sidewalks? Will that be, are we waiting until downtown steering committee makes a plan to decide where we would add sidewalks?
We've got a list of potential projects. If there's other projects to consider, certainly more investigation.
Yeah, if there are additional sidewalks that come up, let us know. I mean, we're rocking and rolling it. I think what you'll see this year is we're finally really going to start to pound away at it. So if there are pieces missing we don't know about, please let us know, and we'll get those on the list and start working on them. Our goal is to connect.
That is the intent of the plans. Once the plan's done, we'll have a list of recommendations, and then we vet that through. We'll say Main Street is going to install a system of sidewalks that is not existing now. But yes, once that plan's completed, it'll have street connections, sidewalk connections, a number of things that will be brought to the board to vet, and that would be in addition to what you've seen today.
Thank you. And then the mobility plan, we'll take the greenway plan, the sidewalk plan, the side path plans, as well as road plans, and we'll put them all in one source for us. We're not going to this book for this answer. It will be in one clearinghouse on their website, so you will know where these things are eventually.
Thank you.
So again, a lot of big DOT projects in town. Some of these have been delayed, but they're all still various stages moving forward. We include this on our monthly project update. Where is this information coming from? It's coming from the state STIP or TIP list, or information coming out of the CRTPO. The town's not creating or has drive on any of this. We're just giving you information that's being published, again, so you can have it all in one spot. As we get updates, we'll update this. ADA sidewalk compliance, as mentioned earlier, how about that? So we're still in the process of reviewing the sidewalk out there to see if what we have meets compliance. So where are we? This is going to look similar to what we talked about last year. We've surveyed all of the sidewalk ramps in town. There was a little over 5,400 of those. What we found was 2/3 of those ramps that we have in town are compliant. That means the other third is not. So that's pretty good. Most of our ramps are. What we'd estimate to fix, just the ramps. Again, this is just the ramps at the intersection only. Okay? Our current estimate is about $2.7 million just to fix what we have, what's already out there, to bring it into compliance. As conditions change, we recommend going out about every 5 years. It seems to be what other communities and also the ADA folks recommend, because things change out there. It's out in the environment. Things can change. So want to get back out there and again, look at what we have. Again, these are additional dollars. These are not projects. So this is just to fix what's already out there. Okay.
I will add this time, our resurfacing packages now include fixing the ramps. If we're paving that street, we go ahead and fix the ramps if they're not compliant. So we are making small steps to get there.
Yep. So then you have the sidewalk between the ramps. Last time we looked, it was around 285 miles of sidewalks that we maintain in town. We're trying to collect data on that when staff has availability. But as what you saw earlier, there's a lot of stuff going on with projects that we're doing, just the new stuff. This is looking at the additional stuff. That's in addition to all of the private development that's going on, is currently going on. Since the town has taken over the land development plan review, the amount of plans that are coming in to be reviewed, the trend is up. COVID had no impact on that. There was not a dip, and we're just recovering. It went up, and it's continuing to go up. So we've done some staff things to try to accommodate and keep on top of the development plans. That means we have less time to do all the other stuff. And unfortunately, sidewalk data collection has been part of that. So we are about 60% done with just, again, collecting data on the existing sidewalk. As you would guess, there's lots of issues all over the place. We've got some future slides that are going to talk about some of that. If we're in that same, I'll say, compliance rate, we talked about ramps, we got 2/3 of them are good. If the compliance rate is about the same for sidewalks, our repair estimates are going to be over $10 million. Easy. Again, that's just to keep what we have in compliance with ADA. But we don't know yet because we haven't surveyed everything. Hopefully it'll be better.
Yeah, so get ready.
Got the boxing gloves in the back if you need them. Yep. Got a steel cage, maybe if needed. All right, so talked about ADA sidewalk compliance. One of the things that we see as a challenge to keeping sidewalks in compliance is street trees. The areas where we tend to see sidewalk issues are near where street trees are. When I talk about street trees, that's the trees located between the sidewalk and the back of curb. As those trees grow and mature, we seem to see more issues. And those issues are not only to the sidewalk, but also to the stormwater system. You see the tree that's above ground, there's a lot of stuff below ground that can impact as well. So some of the things we've seen, and there have been some things to try to address that over the years. Some subdivisions that have been built, been out there for a while, the trees are maturing. there's only a 5-foot gap or a 5-foot distance between the back of the curb and the sidewalk. You put a large tree there, when you first build it and first put that tree in, as you can see in the picture, those are some new 2-inch caliper trees. Look great, okay? But those trees tend to grow and they get bigger. So one thing that has changed, a lot of the newer subdivisions now have a 7-foot area. So that gives the tree more room to grow, more room to spread out. So that's what it looks like now. And again, that's a picture from I'd say a newer subdivision where the trees were recently planted. So we're seeing some challenges, and there's a lot of dollars being expended each year to try to maintain the sidewalk that we have. Kevin put together an estimate of, I want to say this past year, on how much was spent, and it's about $500,000 just to maintain the sidewalk. A lot of what they're seeing is from street trees. If you have any questions on maintenance and how much we're spending and where and when and how, Kevin can do that. So what can you do to try to address that? You can keep spending money to try to address it and keep that standard, of having trees between the sidewalk and the back of curb. Or you can make a change and say, we want to kind of put an end to where that is and make a design change for new developments that are coming in to change where those street trees are. And here's an option is you can reduce that planting strip down, leave that room for utilities, and have the trees behind the sidewalk. That way, again, you're moving that tree away from that limited area of growth to get them away from the sidewalk and stormwater system. So, and here's a couple of pictures up here. This is actually from a neighborhood in Huntersville where there are no street trees between the sidewalk and back of curb. It looks pretty good. Some things that, if you did something like that, we think it would reduce the cost to maintain the sidewalk and the stormwater system. Again, the trees cause some issues, so if you take those out, you can see some reduced costs. Also, if you reduce that planting strip down, you're increasing the developable area for new developments and that right-of-way. You also can reduce the burden on the HOA and maybe easier for the homeowner to understand who maintains what. The town does not maintain those trees within the right-of-way. Okay? Most people think that the town does. The town does not maintain any of those. It's either the HOA or the individual property owner that has to maintain those trees that are in the right-of-way.
I agree with you on that. On our HOA, we get a lot of calls asking us to come out and trim the trees between the sidewalk, and we're like, no, that's your responsibility. Like, no, the town owns that property, so it's their responsibility, so it's your responsibility. It's a big argument, but it's a pain, so I agree with you on that.
And Stephen, I think planning and all that, y'all are looking at this for ideas now, I think, right, Jack, of what to do and maybe to recommend street
Right,
trees.
so this is going to be this is the recommendation from the Works and Engineering. Brian Richards is working with, find out where the planning staff sits on this, and then we'll bring it to you.
Yep. So again, just a couple.
Yeah, I think what we've got here is street trees and yard trees. Street trees are the problems now with the sidewalks. If it's a yard tree, which is shown on the left side here, homeowner can come in and cut that down without any issues at all. Is that correct?
Depends on HOA.
Depends on the HOA, depends on the timing of the subdivision. We do have yard tree requirements, which we want to look at holistically and changing our standards.
So you have requirements, but you're not responsible for the tree.
Correct. Technically, I could come in and say you have a planted large or small mature tree in your front yard. If it's got that.
And if it dies, the homeowner still has to replace that tree.
Right.
Which is also true of street trees. Correct. Which is why, like I said, we want to work with our folks over here and come up with a holistic plan that's in one solution that works for everybody.
We're bringing up, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
We're just bringing up some things that we're seeing out there. There's challenges. This is the engineering and public works perspective. This is not every perspective on this. Okay? Some other things we see that would be a benefit is increased sight distance. When trees are planted in that planting strip, they're really close to the road. And sometimes developers plant those too close to the intersections. So again, we have to prune those, go out there and let people know they need to cut them back. So if you didn't have them there, this would eliminate another issue. And also, a minor benefit, less plan review time. So there's plan review time that reviews where the trees are they in conflict with things? If there aren't trees there, then we wouldn't have to go back and forth to get that.
One additional item is that related to site distances, they block signage, so we oftentimes have to trim the trees so you can see the signs. And also it makes your street lights, which is a huge budgetary item, but it renders them useless.
Something that's not up here, I see in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods around town, is when we have the street trees, our trash service, Amazon, anybody else, they are a tree trimming express. And it is, as anybody knows, most people know, I should say, when you break off a branch to a tree and it's not properly cut or treated, it invites insects and disease, and eventually that tree succumbs to those elements. So there's another, it's not up there, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, and along those lines, an issue some folks brought up, I want to say just this past season, leaves from the trees fall in the street, and had a request about, hey, you need to come get the leaves because it's a fire issue with cars driving over or parking on top of them. So there's many more up here, many more challenges to that. Yeah, we want to bring this up. This is the reason why we're bringing up. It's a financial challenge because it's a cost that's going to keep going up.
Quick question, very quickly. How much more in your presentation? And would
We're
the
almost
rest
there.
of you like to take a break and then come back and finish it?
He sounds like he's almost there.
We're probably 10 minutes, maybe?
If you get done in 10 minutes,
15?
lunch.
That's
So-
what,
So up
do
up to
we
you
want to
guys.
take a break between the two? Yes, no?
Motion to take a break right now, how about that? 5, 10 minutes?
Let's come back in 10 minutes.
I'll still buy you lunch.
Okay, so we are back from break, and we are back live. And we will go back to our conversations around the street tree challenges with Public Works and Engineering. Commissioner Phillips?
I was waiting, I had to get back with a friend. So I had a friend who used to live in Crosslands down here. I couldn't remember the name for the life of me on McCoy. If you guys want to see what damage like a street tree can do to sidewalks, that neighborhood is ideal. They haven't lived there in a couple years, but I went walking with her and her little boy, and he was in a stroller. And that neighborhood's fairly new, and the sidewalks are already tore up because of the roots and stuff. So just like a practical experience, if you guys want to go look at, I don't know if you guys have fixed those a lot.
We're all over there.
But that, like, close to here, that's a good neighborhood to see where street trees really cause more damage. And the thing is, eventually the trees are gonna die because they're not getting, like, the proper rootage. So it's almost like a moot point to do that. I'm in favor of doing this. I think this is a lot safer.
I have a
As
question.
long as there's not less
I have a
space.
question in regards to tree placement. You know, if I look at Stone Hollow, for example, they don't necessarily have trees planted in the planting or in the strip between the road and the sidewalk, but the front yards are so small that even the trees that are planted in their yards are pushing the sidewalks up, right? I mean, that's what you see there as well.
Species is a big issue too. They keep changing it, you know, you would think we could, not we, but they keep changing it at the county level, et cetera, but hopefully we could get a species that would be a little more,
Is there a species with less damaging roots? I mean,
there is, but they're more street tree. You know, your hornbeams are probably more of a street tree. Now, it then gives you more of an hourglass, wine glass look that you'll see in downtown settings, but in neighborhoods, they're very few.
I mean, the rule of thumb with trees is the larger the canopy, the diameter of the canopy is also the diameter of the root system. So anything that's going to go out up top is going to go out under the ground as well. So now there are certain species that have deeper root systems, like maples are known to have, have a shallower root system that possibly has more of a heat effect on the side.
Yeah. So we reached out to NC State, and they were going to provide us with some information. So like we all said, we all want to achieve something that our town looks good and can function well and actually reduce costs, minimize impact. So we're going to work with these folks, and we're going to work with the game plan, and we'll bring it back to you guys.
And then you're also looking at tree canopy too as a whole, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
it,
Yeah,
like
we
you
have the right
said,
tool for the job, and that includes trees. Like you said, there's not a one-size-fits-all situation. We've got some zoning categories that have large setback. Obviously, put bigger trees there. We get in tighter situations, let's put the right trees in there so it looks good and functions and minimizes damage.
So maybe a mix, as you said, with a smaller yard and not much, maybe it's a tree in the front yard instead of in the sidewalk. Who knows, but I think these guys will come back with some options for the board to
Okay,
consider.
we've got kind of a one-size-fits-all solution right now with our, so let's open the hood, let's figure it out, and maybe we have multiple solutions for multiple situations.
perfect.
Sure.
Good conversation to have about street trees. So changing gears a bit, I have some, I guess these next several slides, we're going to talk about some requests that have come in and want to get some feedback. Is that something the town wants to move forward with and go down that path? So I received a request a while back about a crosswalk, a way to cross 115 between the Main Street roundabout down to the south at Mount Holly Huntersville Road and right out here at Gilead Road. That distance is a little over 2,000 feet. That's a pretty good distance, so not quite half a mile of walk to get to your, I'd say, high visibility crossings of right up here at Gilead Road. You have a crosswalk at the traffic signal, and then we'll have another one down at Main Street at the roundabout. It'll be, again, high visibility locations where you want people crossing the street. So that's a pretty long distance to try to walk. So if you're coming out, maybe on Gibson Park Drive, do you walk down the street to cross and then come back up to cross? Do you walk up the street all the way to Gilead and then come back down? I'm gonna guess probably not either. So where would it make sense to add a crossing? Do we want to add one? Maybe that's another question to ask. So about halfway between those points is Mullen Street. Okay, So if you're thinking of block structure, about halfway. So if you say, well, I'd never have to walk more than halfway to get there, to cross the street, if you're, maybe between one end. But that's still a long distance to go. Also think about what's nearby that you want to cross the street to get to. If you just have maybe some single-family homes on both sides, are there a lot of destinations people are going to want to cross the street to? So would it make more sense to have it more at the northern end, maybe at Greenway Street? That's a location where you have businesses right there near the intersection. Some destinations to go to as downtown maybe starts to redevelop and you get more pedestrian traffic once the Main Street project is done. Is that more of a location? Are there multiple spots in here we may want to consider? So these are all questions to get you thinking about, is this something we want to pursue now? We want to do a little bit of something now, more later? Look for some feedback.
Main Street, obviously we're pulling utilities down, street lights, sidewalks, et cetera. I asked Stephen to put this on here. I know we're probably looking at, halfway was Mullen, but
Mullen Street, yeah.
Your activity is at Greenway. I think you got a little brewery there. You kind of go down the street there and you hit sort of the Main Street, the stuff that's on Main Street. So we just want to get some feedback if we're going to do I'm going to say mid-block crosswalk before we move down that path of designing, to get some feedback from the board of where you suggest we put it.
I think the key here is the parking right there at Irving on Main Street. That's closer to Greenway. I think people will park there, and when we have an event downtown, and cross rather at Greenway than Mullins. But Commissioner, you live right there, so.
I saw that plays Frogger there sometimes. I do, like you described, I'll walk up sometimes, like walk up to Gilead to go over, like if there's, like to walk to the, oh my God, what is that building? The Arts and Cultural Center. Sometimes I have to decide if I want to walk up to walk back or take a chance and go across the road. So obviously I'm a fan of it at Greenway as a Greenway resident, but trying to think of it holistically, if you're looking at Mullen, I think it would make sense there too. Because you're basically taking the residential all the way up to try and bring them to whatever world we have downtown.
Commissioner Munger?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm kind of Board Boone and partially you apparently. Greenway makes sense just because you got parking lot on this side, you got the parking garage on this side. Businesses are kind of located there. It seems like the logical place.
When do you have to know?
Don't have to put one in.
Let the downtown steering committee look at this, but since that's what they're studying.
I would say I heard that if we're out there now, or as we're doing Main Street now, will they still be, right, would they still be out there?
The Main Street project really ends at Mullen Street, so either way, if it ends up being at Mullen, we could possibly incorporate it into the Main Street project, but this is probably going to be a standalone project.
Okay.
It's going to be separate, so whether we do it now or later, much later, just looking for feedback on location.
And the project won't be, Main Street's won't be done until what? Just say 2 years?
Hopefully another year.
So we got a little time, but we just want some feedback, if you want it or not.
Well, I do think it would be interesting to hear from the Downtown Steering Committee because, currently, this is what it looks like. Currently, it makes sense at Greenway. And it might make sense at Greenway and Mullen in the future. The question is, which bite of the apple do you want to take?
My thing, my thing with it though is getting right of way. Because I know since I've been here, getting some of that property has not been a good time.
So Stephen maybe address it. Are we just talking?
Yes, this is just a crosswalk, and then if you want to do an enhanced one like we're installing now at Sherwood, so do you want one that has flashing yellow lights? So it'd just be basically 2 poles right on either side of the road and some sidewalk ramps right there. So this wouldn't be
Probably
going
no
way back
right
into
of way.
properties.
We wouldn't have to get any more right of way?
Maybe a little bit, we'll have to see, but it may fit
We may-
within what we got.
Hopefully, we'll be able to do something within the existing right of
Okay.
way out there.
Commissioner Kidwell?
So yesterday I was at Crafty Guys.
You didn't invite me?
Hmm?
You didn't invite me?
We did, you didn't come. And while I was enjoying a cold beverage, I watched a gentleman park in the church parking lot and then Frogger across the way to get to Crafty Guys because they have limited parking back there. They've got like 7 spaces. So I think a crosswalk in that area, based off the current climate with business, would be a positive thing.
I mean, like, we do it when we walk to Main Street Coffee, because to me, it's absurd to walk up to Gilead, go down, then go that way. So, yeah, sometimes we take that chance and run across with 2 little children, which is really fun.
So you just
So
tell us, or we
that's
can,
what I'm-
you can take it to the downtown committee or whatever, we just want to make things happen.
Do you want to move, say yes, Greenway's the right location for now and look at other options later? And
I think it's the most central location.
Commissioner Partee, you've been quiet.
I'm just listening, and I would let the downtown committee make the choice. And I would go by what they recommend.
I'd say we go with Greenway unless the committee overrules us, if they have a better plan or different idea. So give them direction.
I think it would be the most utilized there.
So I will just tell you, I would be shocked if the downtown plan does not include crosswalks at every intersection. We are going to change downtown from a car-oriented to, hey, this is a pedestrian, this is a different site. So I applaud engineering and public works for bringing this issue up. And I think that it makes sense to go ahead and install now one at Greenway. But I will just tell you, my sense is from the downtown committee, I suspect they're going to be looking at more rather than, every other block.
Okay.
So I just want to get that up.
Commissioner Phillips?
Just so we have this on knowledge, how much does a crosswalk typically cost?
Well, it depends on what you do. So there's multiple different options. If you're just talking about striping, maybe a few $1,000s. To do one like we're doing at Sherwood, where it's got the rapid flashing lights and to put in that technology and equipment, probably looking at $20,000 or $20,000 to $30,000. Again, depending on how much sidewalk and ramps you have to rebuild. If you have to go get right-of-way, that's an added cost. If you have all the right-of-way and you're not moving utilities, and it's that probably 20 to 30 to get that equipment and put in a couple of ramps. That's for the ones that flash yellow. If you want the ones that flash red, the hawk type signals, that's more in line with putting in a traffic signal. Those costs go up significantly. You're probably looking more like $100,000. So it's a big cost difference. And also time to deliver that is much longer because you have to go through a full design process with that versus the other ones, they're more out of the box, quicker to go. I'll also say 115 is a state-maintained road, okay? State-maintained road. Town can't just show up and, yep, we want to put a crosswalk every 10 feet, okay? We have to go through the state to do that, and they're going to have to go through their criteria to see what's allowed.
So if that's something the downtown's gonna look at, and that's something the state has to be part of, would it be advantageous to have Senator Marcus or Representative Bradford be part of a downtown steering committee meeting at one point to go over what's state versus what's town? Because we can say all day, every day as a board, oh yes, we would love to do that for you, but if our hands are tied at the state level, I feel like that is like a Huntersville 101 for the steering committee kind of conversation that might need to be had.
If I could make a recommendation, I think it'd be a good idea if the steering committee comes up with some ideas. We can run it by, again, the local folks at the state, and they can give us feedback. I don't know that it needs to go that high right at the beginning. They can say, sure, if this town says, yeah, we want a crossing here and here, and the state goes, yeah, that seems reasonable, then we're done. We don't have to.
I just don't want to waste the steering committee's time coming up with ideas and dreams that can never materialize.
But some of those may materialize, so let's just say on-street parking and things like that, which are gonna be an issue for DOT and some of these other things. Some of the big decisions they're gonna have to make is, let's just say, that's a major recommendation that comes out of this committee. One of the decisions may be, the way around that is, the town take over the street. That's a big policy decision for the board to make, but you can solve some of those issues by taking over the street. So, and those will be big issues, but taking it through the minutia of DOT will be tough because of their policies. You're talking about whole policy changes, and even Bradford and Marcus and them can't just change those like that. So those would be big decisions for that. I'm sure a lot of them are gonna come back like that. That are gonna be decisions, the only way we probably can make a serious impact is to take over the street, i.e. maybe from railroad track to Commerce Drive, you know, roundabout to roundabout, you know, those kind of things. Similar to what you noticed, just a little section from Cornelius Town Hall out to 21. The only reason they got that on-street parking is for that very reason. They took over that section of street.
And we did that with Stumptown, when the
That's
town
right.
took Stumptown back from the state. So it's not unheard of, but I do think we need to have a plan in place. in
I'll
order
just say the other challenge to that is this is a numbered route. It's E115.
Makes it tough.
That may bring a whole nother level
It does.
of complexity versus a Stumptown or a Gilead or something else. It's not a state number. Look at that.
Commissioner
But
Kovacs.
Davidson does it through their downtown. So it's there, I mean, downtown Davidson, look at on-street parking everywhere. It's 115. So it can be done, it's just complicated.
Oh, we have to.
You have a question?
Okay,
Continue.
so I guess the feedback is we're waiting for the steering committee.
I don't know that I heard wait from the
Keep it
steering
rolling, right?
committee.
Go with Greenway, and if steering committee contradicts, we'll.
There you go.
Okay. That's why I asked, just make sure. All right, similar topic, different location. So down at North Mech High School on 115, so go further down towards the southern end of town. So just to give you a familiarity of what's around there, you have North Mech High on one side of the road, and you have Walmart, Bojangles, McDonald's, Sam's gas station, car wash over there. So police have brought this to our attention before. The town added some sidewalk along 115 to get down to the Alexandria signal, hopefully curb and make this issue better. Went out there last week with the police, and what we found was that most students that cross the street, for whatever various reason, tend to cross in this area. Some look for cars, some don't. Some just walk in front. So we're out there, so we observed several groups that come from the high school and just cross the street generally in this area. So what are some options? We could put in a crossing there. So that location, just to give you some perspective, is about 800 or so feet from the traffic signal down at Alexandria, which has a crosswalk. There's sidewalk on both sides of the road to be able to get down to and from, to get across the street. But what we're seeing is most folks are not using that, or most students at bell times to get to school or from school are not using that. They're just, you mentioned, playing soccer, getting across the street.
Is it true
So-
that I heard that parents are parking in the Walmart parking lot instead of going through the car line?
That could be. The police mentioned that as a possibility. Don't know if not out there following students on where they go. Are they going over to the other establishments there first? Are they parking over there and walking? Are their parents over there? Don't know. But what we're observing is.
I have seen that firsthand, standing at the entrance of North Amek School, watching parents pull over as they're going north, let their kid out, run across into the school. So my question has there been any conversation with the school and with their parents to curb this?
From what the police have indicated is they've tried that.
So in
And once they leave school property, I don't think the school can do anything about it.
in the defense of the kids, we said this is like 800 feet to the light, but we were just talking about doing a crossing at Greenway, and that was less than 700. So I guess I'm just as guilty as the kids, but a teenager is not going to be like, I'm not going to walk all the way down there to walk back, because most of them, I think, go to the gas station and the food places, but I see a lot of times kids going into the gas station getting snacks or things like that, so they're going past their destination to go back.
Stephen, if the board directed move in that direction on crosswalk, the kids will funnel that crosswalk. They're gonna literally just.
They could. They could. One possibility is to do something I mentioned before, is a hawk signal. So a hawk signal is one, it goes red. So all vehicles have to stop when it's activated. Versus the ones that are yellow, you're supposed to stop if somebody's in the crosswalk. This is one where when you activate it, it'll flash red and you have to stop, and then everybody can cross.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Do you mind going back to that slide? I don't know, I don't think that's where you're planning on putting the crosswalk that we're talking about. Because if you put a hawk signal or a red flashing light, there's an exit right out of the Walmart Brighton area right there. So you're pulling out and stopping right there. So would it be further back or would it be further forward?
Yeah, I've seen ones that are at intersections. There's one in Charlotte, actually near where I live.
Or I should say, would
It's
you
right at an intersection.
cross it both ways? Would it encompass the whole intersection?
It would just cross 115.
So where in your
That's an option,
circle
yes.
would you, or where,
You got your pointer, Steve?
Pointer's not working. It could be right in the middle. It could be down at the intersection. That's something we need to work with the state on to determine where but that's a pretty short area. That's not, hundreds and hundreds of feet. That may be 100 feet of area in there to try to figure out where. There's also utilities that cross right there, so we'd have to look to see what conflicts are there. But that seems to be generally where most students are crossing.
Commissioner Barty?
Stephen, would it be possible to probably question or ask the students where they would like to have the lights, since they're the ones that are running back and forth across the intersection? Maybe have a survey in the school and asking the students to pick a place? Because no matter where we're going to put it, they cross at one particular point. I've seen them run across back and forth, and I'm very worried about them using that intersection when it's very busy, because they just pick one area and they just start out. So,
Commissioner Munger?
Just quick question. I obviously grew up in a different time, but does CMS have any policies in terms of whether or not students can actually leave campus? Is it open campus? They have no issue leaving? Because when I was in high school, you could not leave campus.
some kids have like shortened days if they have work permit programs or things like that, they leave.
They'll leave at about 11:30.
Okay. So
Early
that's
dismissal
all right.
for. Ms. Strickland?
Just to add to this conversation, because it's actually one of the issues that has come my way several times in the last 6 months. According to HPD,
There are several factors there, and mainly you have students who will park at Walmart because they cannot park on campus. That was one issue. They don't have enough spaces, and those are privileged spaces, and not all students can have privilege to park on campus. So they're parking at the Walmart parking lot because it's large. CMS and North Mech have both tried to get them to go to the crosswalk, and they say the students are compliant as long as someone is out there. So if HPD is out there, then they tend to take the long way around. The other pieces are, yes, some of the parents of the students who cannot drive would much prefer to go across the lot and drop them off in that parking lot than to go through the car line. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, and just maybe a few weeks ago, I received a request from a member of the PTSA at North Mech, and they really want to do something, but it seems like there's a lot of factors. It's students, it's parents, it's drivers, there's so many pieces involved, and they haven't been able to come up with a solution. So I think anything that this board can do is obviously a good thing, but it may not be the fix-all for all that's going on out there. But according to, again, HPD and the school, you have parents, teachers, students. There's a lot of factors in that particular area for why they don't use the crosswalk.
Quick question for you, Stephen. If you put a crosswalk here, you do a hawk signal, and where it's blinking red, what does that do to the intersection at Alexandriana? Is there any?
It could cause some queuing issues when it's activated. So if you think about the peak times for the school letting out, if that's the intended group using, that seems to come out in a big wave right when school ends. Went down there again last week. It was 2:15, 2:30. A couple of big waves of kids came out, and then that was pretty much it. Now, coming to school, most students arrive right before school starts. So there's going to be some times that there causes some issues, but it's not throughout the whole entire day. You don't get a lot. It would only activate once somebody pressed it, so it wouldn't be something that comes up every single.
I think it might clump them together as well as like individuals running across sporadically, which also affects traffic. But if it clumps them together for a few seconds and they all run across as opposed to every 5 seconds there's a kid.
I just think the question becomes, do they use it? If we put it in, will they also use it?
So I'm gonna be the jerk in this situation. Somebody's gotta be. This is an enforcement issue. This is a following the rules issue. So we're gonna spend over $100,000 because kids don't listen to the rules and follow their own safety. And that bothers me because the thing is, they have adequate sidewalks where they're designated to be. And I don't know if this goes back to Chief's thing about having additional SROs on staff and one can be outside monitoring this. If it's the old school writing kids, warnings, I don't know what schools do now. But the fact is, kids are gonna be kids, and I've been out there with HPD, I've done my ride-alongs, I've seen the clusters, I've driven that area a ton. Those kids aren't all gonna group together, they're gonna see the easiest shot and take it, because frankly, they're not supposed to be parking at Walmart, and they're scared of getting their cars towed. And what kind of parent encourages their kid to cross 4 lanes of traffic where they have a crosswalk? Like, that upsets me, because I'm not into whole, the government parenting your kids, but this is just, I do not want to throw money at a problem that's not our problem, because there's so much more going on to this. And I think it's unfortunate, because if we put a crosswalk there, my concern also is for driver safety, where people get a green light, they go, and the next thing you know, you got 2-3 cars getting rear-ended and lined up. That's another issue we have to look at too. Sorry to go off, but it's crazy to me that kids wouldn't look out for their own safety.
I agree, it's crazy, but I also fear of losing a child or 6.
Commissioner Munger?
Sure, and to kind of build on that, the town is now addressing a CMS-specific issue. This is not town-specific. We are addressing an issue that CMS is causing. If they are not going to be involved in the process financially, I don't know why we're even looking at this. I mean, they have to bring money to the table because we're fixing their problem. That would be my opinion.
I would say we did put in the sidewalks. We did give them, that was something that was not.
And if we're going to spend a couple $100,000, I mean, CMS needs to step up to the plate and do something.
Mr. Roberts?
Have we, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but how about DOT, how do they address some of this on a DOT road? Obviously in CMS, I mean, I know, say spot safety funds, I don't know, can be used for something like this?
We can certainly ask. I know for spot safety.
They'll probably say, go down to the light, that's why we got sidewalks up.
Yeah, so you can ask DOT. When we have asked in the past about, I'll say, this specific location, the answer was we would allow one, if you pay for it, and then the town also has to maintain it too. They won't maintain the once they're in. So it's a pay now and pay later exercise.
Commissioner.
That's what we decide.
Commissioner Boone, do you have any questions?
And then I'll also add, I know it's saying it's a school issue or it's an enforcement issue. From what I understand, the police can't issue citations either. And while we were out there, I was standing out there with 2 uniformed officers watching. And kids didn't go, oh my gosh, there's an officer, I better not do this. I don't even know if they saw us out there. We were standing right there.
Probably because they're
Cannot.
minors. I doubt they can. I mean, I would assume they can't because they're minors.
Commissioner Party?
We all know students, teenagers are irresponsible. No question, we're all there. But I cannot put a price tag on a life. The first child, student that's struck and killed at that intersection, and even the impact it's going to have on the pedestrian, on the driver that even strikes or kills somebody. We cannot put a price on that. If we can prevent or assist students getting back and forth at a lower cost, then I would say, my opinion is I would want to do that. Because a life is worth more than $100,000 or whatever else it's going to cost us. Teenagers are irresponsible. They don't think, they just react. We've all been there. That's my
But also, this is the thing, this is the Huntersville side. The other side isn't Huntersville. It's ETJ, monitored by Charlotte. And the kids cross right there too, just as badly. So it's like, okay, we're only handling a Huntersville problem. Over here, I guess, is ETJ, Mecklenburg County, Charlotte problem, where the same thing's happening. So we might fix this side, but not the other side, and that goes back to what Lance said about this is a CMS issue. And that side of the road, you know, why isn't that, it's not our place to discuss it, but that issue's happening over there too.
On the Charlotte side?
Yeah, because the gas station right there,
Right.
and Hendrick, and then I know some of the kids over there have been parking in that business park, Twin Lakes.
Have we seen that as well?
What the police have brought to our attention is this
This
location.
one.
But Huntersville doesn't monitor Twin Lakes, that's CMPD. So that's, and I'm just pointing it out for them, not to y'all, I know it's not y'all's problem, but that's another issue, because I know a kid that parks over there, he narked on himself.
I think Huntersville is enforcement on the ETJ, not the county.
Not the Twin Lakes part, I've had to call Anthony before over that.
I'm talking about where it's crossing right there. That's Huntersville's jurisdiction.
Yeah, but the other side, they're having issues, so it's like, okay, I understand we all care about kids, but this for me is a CMS issue, because we fix this side, so then what happens when a kid gets hit on the ETJ Charlotte side? Like, CMS has got a bigger problem here than just this little part, they've got the other side of the road to worry about too.
CMS can't leave and go walk down the street to walk the kids across the street though. Like, I don't know, monetarily, possibly, doubtful, but monetarily they might be able to help out, but I don't know what they could do outside of this. It's a CMS issue because that's where children go, but once they leave campus, they're off campus, and then they're our responsibility as a town, because they're no longer under CMS purview.
Commissioner Kidwell, what are your thoughts?
I think we could put in 10 crosswalks, all with red flashing lights. And kids are gonna cross where they're gonna cross. And cars are gonna get rear-ended, and someone's gonna get hurt, and it's just gonna happen. So put in a crosswalk. It's not going to deter or make funnel children to that point. They're gonna be like, well, I can cross here either, and they're gonna run across with their friends and be irresponsible and stupid like we all were at some point in our lives.
So my question then is, if we put a crosswalk in,
Well, I'm not done.
oh, I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, and I will agree with Commissioner Munger. Yeah, it is a CMS issue. They have continued to obviously allow this to happen. We are short an SRO officer there, according to the chief. And as I learned yesterday, and I did not know this, and I don't know how many of you guys did this, I didn't realize that CMS had their own police department. And if it's such a serious issue, why aren't they up there saying, guys, you got to go down there. Guys, you got to go down there. So there seems to be some issues with North Mech or CMS not handling their side. I have no problem handling our side, but I don't think putting in one crosswalk or 10 crosswalks is going to solve the problem ultimately. I think it's just a expenditure of money, make people feel good. Hey, we did our job, we put in a walk, and we're still gonna have the issue of people parking over there, parents dropping their kids over there, and so on and so on and so on. I'm done, thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? What direction are we giving?
I would like to pause on this until we have the SRO conversation and see what happens with chief. I feel like that's the most practical thing.
I also feel like we asked CMS, what are you gonna do about it?
So what I'm hearing is let's take a pause, let's have a conversation with CMS, figure out that lay of the land, if they have a plan to address this, and then come back to you. Is that what I heard?
No, that's not what I would like to do. I'd like to make a decision on it, but if that's what the committee wants to do, then they can do it, but I'm not for it.
We'll get back with you on this one.
Sure.
Can I suggest a straw vote?
I'm fine with a straw vote, absolutely. Who would like to move forward with some form of a crosswalk in that location? Who would like to have a conversation with CMS and then circle back?
And I think when we have that conversation, even though it's not our responsibility, what are they doing about the Eastfield Road side of the situation? Because if we're gonna talk about kids matter, I don't wanna say the kids just on Huntersville side matters. I want to know what's really gonna happen for that community.
Mr. Roberts, you get that?
Got it.
Thank you.
Pen's working hard over here.
All right, next. Yeah, I won't be able to get 10 minutes, Anthony. That's a good discussion on these. That's why we're doing it now. All right, another location with folks crossing the street, Reese Boulevard at Rose Commons Drive. This is in the Rosedale Shopping Center area, location between the Harris Teeter and the Publix, if you know where we're talking about. So we had a request to evaluate and look at the intersection, because there's some challenges with the pedestrians crossing the street. So we took an approach and looked at this in multiple ways. We conducted a traffic count, so a vehicular movement count out there. We also took a pedestrian count, where video cameras up, and looked at that. Looked at crash data, and we also looked at how it was designed. What we found was that there were a lot more pedestrians than what we expected crossing the streets. It's in the hundreds every day that cross the street in this area. I assumed there'd be some, for sure. I wouldn't have assumed it would have been that high. We also looked at the traffic count data and found that there's a lot of traffic going through the intersection, not only on Reese, but also on Rose Commons. So after looking at that, along with crash data, there's a crash history at this intersection as well. What we would like to do, and would like to get your feedback on, is installing an always stop at the intersection, and also marking some crosswalks and improving some pedestrian ramps. I wanted to get some feedback, answer any questions that
Commissioner Munger.
100% yes. This is a disaster. I hate coming out of this
Me
thing.
too.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm so anxious every time. I'm like, okay.
And honestly, I feel like, I don't mean this in like a crude or terrible way. I feel like this is our Davidson problem right here, and I worry that something bad is gonna happen at that intersection eventually, especially with the street trees blocking the lights. Like, that really is a concerning issue.
Line of sight there.
Commissioner Kidwell?
I think that's one of the most well-built intersections in Huntersville. I'm kidding, that thing needs to be fixed. It is a complete disaster there, getting in, getting out. I think this would be very beneficial for the pedestrians, because there are a lot over there, I see them when I go shopping, and trying to leave that, well, trying to park in that parking lot and then leave that parking lot on either side has always been very difficult.
Commissioner Partee?
Oh, I'm just adjusting my
Oh.
glasses. No, but I use Salad Works. I go to Salad Works there all the time to eat, and that's a busy intersection, so I agree with the store stop signs.
And just adding on that, you have that connect island, yes, because people coming out of that just adds to the chaos. So everything there, yes.
Commissioner Boone?
I
Are you good with
can't
that too?
I can't add anything. Everybody kind of agrees on this. Pretty cut and dry.
I'll say another option here could be to look at a roundabout. That's another option that can facilitate traffic and pedestrians. Although you've got some challenges here. You've got a lot of businesses and buildings right up next to the street. You've got some potential grade challenges with tying in, so that's maybe another alternative. It'd be much more costly and time-consuming to do. So this would be a lower cost solution and one that could be implemented more quickly.
Mr. Trott, I think this makes the most sense. You start putting a roundabout in there with the 18-wheelers that come through there too.
Cha-ching.
I think this is the most fiscally responsible solution that you could present.
And it's effective.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say, even if there was no pedestrian data, I mean, pedestrian volume out here does meet the warrants for an all-way stop on its own, just based on the vehicles. So to me, there's multiple things that all point towards a yes on this one. So
Can we shape the sidewalk going toward the Harris Teeter, taking a right in so you can actually turn in when there's a car?
Oh my goodness.
That is a bad intersection.
It's awful.
Steve, you say you have crash data on that? What's the crash data?
So we look at crashes at the intersection to see if there are any crashes that were potentially correctable by an all-way stop. What those crash types are there people turning in front of other ones, so T-bone crashes, or from the side street, which already has stop signs, that say they couldn't see what was coming, they didn't see somebody making a turn. Those types of things are potentially correctable by an all-way stop. So we look to see, if the crash types that are coming up are, I drove off the road and I hit a parked car. That's not going to be correctable by an all-way stop. Or I hit a dog that was crossing the road. That's not going to be correctable by an all-way stop. So are there crash types that are potentially correctable by having an all-way stop at the intersection?
Quick question to what I'm looking at. Are you looking at closing off the turn there into the CVS parking there as well?
Yes. Because there's a lot of conflicting movements, and there are crashes, and everything's, as kind of mentioned, everything's happening all the same spot. So to focus that traffic to a location where it's better to cross and make maneuvers, that's the intent there. And we're not closing off that driveway, just closing off that movement from making the left out of there.
What's the speed limit through there?
I believe it's on 25. It's already low speed.
Yeah, no, it's when people are coming, I guess it would be south from Reese towards Gilead. Some of those cars, especially at night, are flying. So that would be really nice.
Okay. Anything else?
Big thumbs up.
Commissioner, or Mr. Roberts?
Don't make me a commissioner.
No,
Let
right.
Dan say that. I assume we will let folks know, Kim will be pushing stuff out, we'll let the businesses around there know and all that before we cranking on this.
You'll have to get materials, and mentioned earlier about construction costs and time. Well, Jackie says money too. Thermoplastic is a tough material to get now, so we'll have to try to work towards securing the materials to be able to do this.
Okay.
Talking to Jackie about sponsors.
No worries.
Okay. Anything else?
And now, I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to.
Kevin promised under 10 minutes.
That was.
Sounds like an hour ago.
It's just now Kevin's turn.
So we'll kind of switch gears a little bit from more project-based to kind of maintenance, and some ongoing things we have. Val Bill, as you know, is a big funding source for a lot of our maintenance and projects that we undertake. This is just a kind of a snapshot of the statewide POW bill allocation, $159 million. I wish I could say that there was some kind of trend that we could rely on with the funding. There's not. You can see a downturn there for the COVID, it appears, but then in 2021, it jumps way up, so who knows? I guess that slide represents just the inconsistency of it. The town's portion of that pie, this year, we received 1.725 million, just over that. Again, we saw a little bit of a downturn, and then our funding is back up for this year. If you wonder how we get to that number at 75% based on population and 25% based on road miles, so it ends up being for us about $1,520 per mile, $1,520 per mile, and then about $18 per person in our population. So that's where that's town miles that we maintain. So we maintain 220, just over 221 miles at our last reporting to the state. As you're aware, POW bill, 100% of our street maintenance activities are funded by POW bill. So none of the general fund dollars go to that. We do a little exercise. A lot of you have seen this over and over and over. We update this and make sure it still stands true. But 1 mile of street, it's about $40,000 to mill it. And this is resurfacing, by the way. We figure in about $35,000 to patch 10% of the area if it's failing really badly. And then about $160,000 to put 2 inches of fresh asphalt on the street. It's about $235,000 per mile. A little more math, 221.54 miles at that $235,000. If we did our entire system, you're looking at over $52 million. If we spend 80% of the 1.725 that we get from POW bill, we can resurface our streets every 38 years. All of that exercise just to say that the POW bill is not sustainable. My predecessor, Max, preached on this for a lot of years, and I'm going to follow suit. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where POW bill dollars are going to have to be supplemented with general fund monies. Not necessarily this year, but next year, if I'm lucky enough to be standing here, I'll tell it to you again. So we're seeing we're getting about probably 16 to 20 years, depending on volumes and stuff like that. So I've again fortunate enough to be here at the town long enough now that streets that were brand new that I inspected when I came to work for the town, we're having to resurface now. So that's about 16 years. Again, last year, briefly I touched on this, and we'll fly through it. We have some work to do, the manager's office and I and the finance department, about bringing fleet services in-house. We don't have all the numbers for you, but we're going to research this hard. Again, we've got about 200 vehicles the town owns. Of course, that increases every year. That number increases. And then equipment, Parks and Recs has tractors. Public Works has tractors and excavators and all that good stuff. So the number of pieces, rolling stock, if you will, is pretty big. We feel like we're outsourcing over $100,000 in maintenance a year, parts and labor. We're going to take a look at bringing all that in-house for minor repairs, oil changes, tires, brakes, batteries, that type of thing. Obviously, if it needs a new transmission or something like that, we probably won't be offering that kind of service. But we're going to take a hard look at the numbers. There's pros and cons to that. I think we work hard, work closely with the police department because they have the most vehicles. But here's some of the pros for that. And then the cons, obviously, there is a startup cost for that. And then space requirements, because it would be on our public works. We're making steps for that. That's, we're building the pole sheds that you guys approved last board meeting, so that will kind of help free up some shop space if we ever did bring this in-house. So we'll be coming back to you on if those numbers work out. Solid waste services, I'm expecting about a $550,000 increase in services for fiscal year '23. The contract with Waste Connections does provide a CPI increase as well as a fuel adjustment increase. And with fuel prices skyrocketing the way they are, and the CPI being what it is, we feel like we're looking at about another $500,000. Current contract for Waste Connections does expire July 1st of 2023. It was originally a 7-year contract that started July 1st of 2016. In the contract, it does allow for up to 2 one-year extensions, but we will be working this year to see if that's going to be an option that we want to bring back to you, an extension, or if we just want to rebid those services altogether. I would say that given the climate, yes.
Yes. Getting other quotes, to know when we originally signed the contract, it wasn't with them, it was with Advanced Disposal. They assumed Advanced Disposal, and even with my time off the board, I can tell you that I heard nothing but complaints about them. And I know that, as Amber has told me, you don't email the board enough with the complaints, but I do call them directly a lot just from my neighborhood. And it's just missing, I mean, there's 2 canisters still sitting outside our swimming area. They've been there for 3 weeks. They have missed them every time. And you can call and complain all I want, and they still just don't pick them up.
All right, email us that as well, because that's the kind of thing that we need.
Yeah, they track that. Kevin, at what point do you expect to rebid this out for us to be ready July 1 of 2023?
I would say we probably, by this time next year, we need to be working on that, for sure.
Did I hear you say which employees will be involved in the bid? I would say the manager's office will poll other local governments that have rebid theirs recently, and we'll take their contract and tweak it, and that's how we would come up with a RFP to send
She
out.
said timing.
That's what I was looking at, is the timing, and when would it ultimately come back before the board for a vote?
To have something in place, July 1, you're gonna want to have that buttoned up.
Probably more of a year in advance, somewhere between 9 months to a year in
There's
advance.
a reason we bring it up now.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I just wanted everybody to hear it.
Is that,
It's going to be my next question. Is that what this board would like to also see, for it to be rebid?
Yes.
I'd like a straw poll, please. Everyone to rebid? Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Boone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Every time that I call these folks to get a canister replaced, the answer is they're on back order. That's the same answer for the last 2 years. And that's got to be addressed. Somebody calls in with a broken can. We've got to have inventory at Public Works. And
guys, I mean, I will defend them to a certain amount. The town of Huntersville system is huge. I mean, we're right at now 21,000 household units, each of which have 3 cans. It would be impossible for them. And now they've got cans that are 6, 7, 8 years old. So for them to keep the amount of cans necessary to be able to replace a can, you know, I understand that the excuse gets old, but also the logistics of having that many cans on hand would be daunting. So I'll just say that, and we're getting the service for relatively cheap. It's about, every time they lift up a can and put it in the truck, it's about $1.58.
But I will say that their customer service isn't what I would like to see, because I think it's kind of crap that there are people who go a month without something, then they reach out to me, and I take it to you or Anthony, and then boom, they're on it. It shouldn't take a commissioner reaching out to somebody to get the services, because that bothers me. Like, customer service should be great for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a commissioner or you know, are a citizen. So that's been my frustration with them. And I know, like.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
And I know you've been
But
wonderful about helping too, but I hate even having to bug you over stuff that should just get done.
But please send it to us, because that way we can, if we know about it, then we can try to get it fixed. Shouldn't have to work that way.
Yeah, and there's even liquidated damages in the contract for multiple misses and things like that, so please let us know, because we keep track of that and have assessed damages before.
Yes.
Kevin, I don't know the man's name who's in charge of that, but when they took him off of Huntersville routes, the service went completely downhill. Now, I think he's back.
Dustin,
thank you for that. That the service has improved. It's not exactly where we're at, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
yeah.
And if memory serves, when we went into that contract, I thought that our trash cans were supposed to ultimately rotate out to where they were Huntersville logo to trash cans, correct?
That's correct.
That's what Rob, when
And that
was
has not
16,
happened.
that's what you had asked for, 15.
And that has not happened.
Is that part of the contract?
That was part of the original advanced disposal contract.
Yeah, what we have to look at is to see if that was wrapped into when the new folks came in, and I don't know. I'd have to look at it and see.
Yeah, I would have to go back and read that as well.
No, but I do think that what you heard
Yep.
is to, let's look at putting it out for bid.
We got it?
Will do. We did, because the question had been asked before, what the cost would be to add weekly recycle instead of every other week. And so we reached out to them, and that's about an additional $1.2 million per year to add weekly recycling. I'll add to that, based on the tonnage reports that we get, recycling still remains about half of what the solid waste is, so the numbers don't necessarily justify going to weekly recycling. And then, of course, that's coupled with the fact that, as we all know, there's a reduced market for recycled products. So, I think across the board, municipalities are having a harder time getting rid of the recycled materials for various reasons. So.
On that $1.2 million, we service 21,000 people? Yes. So about $60 a household?
Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Yeah, it broke out to be, about 50. I think about a little over $4 per month per house additional.
And people that I have talked to say they're getting more things from Amazon, more meals delivered to their house, and that's why their recycling cans are filling up just as, if not more than their trash canister, and that's the reason why I brought it up. But what you're saying is it just doesn't warrant that.
Yeah, we're just not seeing it in the tonnage reports. But people aren't breaking down their boxes necessarily, or not crushing their cans, or crushing there's a lot of air in the recycle can.
Well, another issue, Melinda and I have spoken about this, is that the recycling standards have changed, and people aren't aware it's not just 1 and 2 plastics anymore. Now it's like specifics, like down to the types of bottles, and if it has a cap on it, it's going in the garbage. So maybe that's where we work with Kim to get that message out, because that can better help tailor these things in the future too.
I also think that because we have the North Meck Recycling Center here, you see a lot of people, myself included, taking my extra cardboard boxes to the recycling center and recycling that way. But the other piece I think we also need to remember is that those individuals who want that additional can still request that additional can.
That's right.
Right? I don't remember the dollar amount. I think at one point it was like $15.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look to know the exact dollar amount.
And I don't remember if that was for the year or, and it was an extra charge for the
pickup.
For the pickup.
Yeah, that can be all coordinated directly through the solid waste vendor and not through the town.
And we can also make sure that we get it out on social media so people know that they can ask for an extra can. They just have to pay for it.
That's right.
Same with large.
Yes, Ms. Strickland.
We did just receive, Keep Mecklenburg Beautiful just received a grant, and we've created stickers, and they will be rolled out, I believe, starting next month. It's our meeting, and each municipality will be getting more stickers showing the ever-changing recycling guidelines, because they have, but North Carolina has developed a Recycle Right program. It's been out for a few years, but we applied for a grant, and we will be able to get stickers and put them on whatever cans, public cans more probably, like through Parks and Rec or how that, because I did have the conversation with Waste Connections, and we can't put them on their cans. We can put them on our cans. So but there is information, because yes, the recycling stream has changed so much that most of the things that many of us grew up recycling are no longer recyclable. And it costs us money on contamination.
I'm sorry?
Aren't they our cans? According to the contract, if I remember, I mean, this is several years ago, but we weren't leasing or renting cans, we were purchasing.
We switched the cans out because of about a 60-day project where they took that little cart around and they dumped the trash, and then they gave you a new can and took the old can away. Now,
Well, mine didn't get taken.
well, you live on a really bad road to get.
I guess so. I guess so. They're like, nope, not taking a chance there.
I believe you're right, Commissioner Gill. I believe we do own the cans. But in the contract is that they replace them, obviously, although it takes them a while.
Yeah, most likely it would say, I would guess, just based on previous experiences, that you would own it, and then ultimately they replace them as they damage. They don't just come take them all out and replace them, because that would be millions of dollars. But that's probably but we'll take a look at that and get that information back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Solid waste, moving on to solid waste, the annual fee for residents this year, you guys, previous board, increased it to $108 per household. The expected revenue from that is about $2.25 million if you keep it at $108. That, as of right now, that number, at the time that we made this slide, that number was accurate. It's actually a little lower now based on fuel surcharge. But it's about 50% you're covering. And I think that was the target last year when you did increase that fee. Is to cover about half was the goal. So I put together a couple numbers there. The estimated contract cost for FY23 is about $4.6 million. If you charge a fee of $108, that's going to cover you about 50% of that contract. And then obviously you see to cover 100%, you're up in the $215 to $220 range. So that kind of gives you a scale. We'll be needing guidance, refer to the manager and manager's office of when exactly they'll need that guidance, but in setting the solid waste fee for the residents this year.
Do you want to have discussion
Awesome
around
job
that
with
now?
the 10 minutes.
A couple closing comments, and Stephen make me come back, and then if you guys have any questions, I know we're pushed on time, but I will echo what the police chief said yesterday as far as staffing goes. We urge you to keep us competitive. As I talk to you today, my labor force is down 25%. I have 4 vacant positions. So overall, I'm 15-16% down, but in the labor and the public works guys, the guys that make the difference, and the guys that make us look good, I'm down for. Yes, ma'am.
What is the lowest public work employee paid?
I believe we start them out right at $16.
Okay, and what can they do? When they come in at $16, do they operate Bobcats? Do they know how to do machinery?
They
Like,
are not expected to know how at the entry-level position. They're not expected to, honestly, not expected to know much. We do a lot of on-the-job training with those guys, and then we work with them hard to get them to the point where they can operate the excavators and the loaders, and eventually get them to the CDL level so that we can promote them from within to our other positions.
and then as they're doing these, you know, their certifications going up, are they getting paid more?
We don't have any kind of incentive programs for training or any of that.
Really?
When they move from a shovel to a rake to a hoe, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No.
No,
No, we don't yet.
Yeah, the only increase, we don't have any, like the police department has the step pays and stuff, we don't have any of that built in. The only way for them to get a substantial increase is
So
up
in theory, we can train them on the job training, teach them how to use a Bobcat or something, and then they leave and go somewhere where they're already trained and can get paid more because they're trained in it.
We gotta fix that. I'm not speaking on behalf of y'all, but I know we shouldn't show favoritism to departments, but Public Works, they don't get to take snow days. And on my personal end of it, when they came out, DOT wasn't doing their job, they picked up the slack. And we gotta be more competitive, because as society is progressing, people don't wanna do manual labor. It's the most needed and coveted work. So I would like to see us treat Public Works more equitable, because if we don't have them, we don't have a town that functions.
Mr. Roberts?
I will say, I think, and Jackie and Laura may have to correct me, that's one of the departments that was evaluated this year. So you will probably see, you know, when Laura was giving her presentation the other day, you will probably see some changes to address some of what you're talking about.
And if I can add in, just to echo your point, career development or something that can help move them within the range is something that we're looking at.
Okay, because when I worked, like in the private sector, I was in a company that had an engineering department of over 200 people. And it wasn't like a step plan, but it was like, if you can operate, you know, a Bobcat, then you increased and pay a certain amount. If you obtained your CDL, like you were like the king of kings in that company, because then you're cross-trained to pretty much do any sort of job. And, you know, a lot of those guys would move lateral, but it wasn't really lateral because it kind of went up like hill as they learned more skill sets. And those are skill sets that everybody in Public Works you would hope would want to obtain. But honestly, why are you going to want to try to do extra if you're not getting treated for the extra? I mean, I would put the bare minimum in, and I'm a hard worker, but you want to feel appreciated for obtaining that knowledge and taking on those risks and responsibilities.
And thank you for your comments.
Commissioner Partee?
Are the titles in Public Works, are these civil service titles? Are they given titles?
Yeah, they're our entry-level guys are technicians, they're Public Works technicians. And then we have
Technicians 1, Technicians 2, does it graduate up?
Right now, it's just technician. We have 3 levels really in the crews. It's technician, equipment operator, and then crew leader. Are the 3 levels.
So what?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt. Last question for me is the crosswalk at Sherwood and in front of the elementary school. When do you think that might be done?
I'm hoping, I don't think we've received the last of the materials yet.
They're at the Canadian border or?
10 minutes, 10 minutes.
Right.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Right. As you see, we've started on it, and we've got the foundations in, and they had they have to cure for 14 days before we can load those foundations. And then our hope was that by the time that foundation is cured enough that we can put the pole and the electronics on it, that the pole and the electronics will be here. So my hope is 2 to 3 weeks at tops.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Just know that as soon as it gets here, it's going straight from the delivery truck to the job site.
Good.
You've signed that in blood once.
I will. Yes, sir. I will.
So it sounds like we're gonna hear a little bit more about, not a step, but in additional training incentives, et cetera, for Public Works in the budget as we continue to.
Cost pay adjustment.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for. In the future. Anything else from both of you?
Yeah, I'll echo from engineering. We don't have a big department. We have 8 positions. As Laura said yesterday, we're short one. That was one that was approved in the budget this past year. We're still short one. We allocated some staff on what the duties are. We're still short one. Without all the applications and stuff coming in, we had a job posted, just talking to engineering, posted for 8 months to try to fill a position. We had 11 applications. Okay, engineering, and especially civil engineering, is really tough right now. There's a shortage of qualified folks, and that's not just something that's happened this year. There's been a trend. So there's been fewer engineers for more need. So supply and demand have been going this way. And so we're still here. So trying to fill those positions, any engineering positions are tough. If you do an Indeed search, you're going to find pages and pages of those. You may find a handful of public agencies are all looking for the same folks.
Right.
There's 5-10 times as many private firms also looking for those same folks. There's, say, different from maybe a police or a Parks and Rec, where a lot of those folks work in the public sector. It's the opposite for engineering. There's a lot of folks in the private sector versus the public sector. So we're not just competing against other public sector folks, we're also competing with the private folks. And as Laura mentioned, it takes time to make change. On the private side, those changes can occur quickly. If they have a big need, they can change salaries or benefits or work from home or whatever quickly to try to meet demand. And that's what we've seen is they've done that and they still can't find people. There's also extra stimulus money out there to do fixing things that need the same folks. So there's even a higher demand coming. So trying to fill engineering-related positions is continuing to be a struggle. One option for that is hiring private consultants to do that. Those consultant rates are going to be 2, 3, 4 times what it would cost us to try to fill a position. So that there's many different levels of challenges. And just wanted to echo kind of what the police are saying. It's tough right now.
So we may need to reevaluate that pay scale then as well. Have you been looking at that?
Yeah, it's across the board. I mean, private sector is competing with, pulling police officers in the private sector. It's happening in the bank sector, Parks and Rec, maintenance, engineers, so it's not just unique. Engineers, obviously, with road projects and all the building going on, even though we would have thought it went the other way, you just can't find them. But yes, we're looking at it. One thing we've done is get a little creative in that we try to, if you've got engineers that are in a specialty, can we get them to do other things by incentivizing them with pay, and then maybe try to look for the entry-level engineer instead of the specialty. Maybe some of the folks you already got in-house, incentivize them to get creative and do not just plan review, but stormwater review, I'm using for example. And we have been able to achieve that, and then maybe go after what I'd say the lower level engineer less training. So we are looking at all sorts of ways, getting creative, and also we'll probably have to look at money too, and also flex schedules, all those different things that were just mentioned. In this time, you just have to look at that because they're just not falling from the tree.
When was the last time we did a pay study?
So I'm sure Laura would say we look at departments on a 3-year rotation. A third, right?
Correct. And this year, we're looking at public works, planning, and engineering. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about the highly technical engineer planning, where we're having and seeing more difficulty in some of the field positions. Was our focus for this year. So as was mentioned, we'll have some recommendations with the budget potentially on those positions.
So as that focus, a third, we're still not losing sight of the other departments though as well, correct?
Correct.
Patty and I attended a finance director meeting virtually last week, and this is not news, but it's a level of openness about it we might not regularly have had before. At some point, you just admit, we're coming after your police officers, that lateral transfer, and it's not only happening in sworn personnel, it's happening in multiple other positions. This is a tough economy to keep employees.
Well, I think it gives us a good segue into finance. Unless anybody has any other questions for Stephen and Kevin. You two are off the hook.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two good guys.
I want to go quickly through a couple slides, and then Jackie and I are going to work through the forecast piece. Basically, this first slide is 3 years of our fund balance. These are audited numbers. So if you look at the beginning balance in 2021, our beginning fund balance was roughly $60 million. And it's kind of difficult to explain this, and it's not super exciting, but the top part, through that subtotal of $22,240,000, basically those numbers can't be touched for general fund type activities. They're designated to PAL bill, future capital projects. Those are monies that we have in escrows for projects that developers gave us the money for. So those are for specific, very specific projects. Then we've got the tourism and we've got stormwater. So of that 60 million, 22 million is designated for specific things. Equally, the debt service of 2 million, that's where in years past, we have had extra in the budget, so we put money into debt service that we can use to pay debt service if we need to. The capital projects of 11 million, I'll show you how that works. Then we've got emergency services. That piece is the fire department's part of fund balance. So they technically have $584,000 that they can use as they need. The subsequent year expenditures, that $4,073,000, that's what we used in 21 to balance in 22 to balance the budget. Okay? So when we get through and we say our expenses are this in the general fund and we've got this much in revenue, we had to balance the budget by dipping into fund balance $4 million. Okay? Now, the last bucket is the unassigned calculated. And the way that's calculated is I take our general fund budget for FY21, and then I subtract off the PAL bill budget, the tourism budget, and the stormwater budget, and I take 40% of that number. 40% of that number is $18,156,278. Okay? So that's where we drop. So the larger your budget gets, the bigger that number's going to get. The reason it decreased from 20 to 21 is because we changed our fund balance policy from holding back 45% to holding back only 40%. So we know our beginning number and we know our ending number, and we know all those pieces except the capital project piece. So any amount over the 18 million, I put into capital projects. So technically, that's the money that we can appropriate fund balance for. Okay? So when I say we're going to appropriate fund balance for the crosswalk or to match CRTPO money or anything like that, it's coming out of that capital projects line. Okay? That's how that works. So we're just solving for capital project. So if you say, I don't want 40% anymore, I want a lower amount, then that only thing that's going to do is shift the money from unassigned calculated up to capital projects. And Jackie had asked me earlier, what is 1%? In this year's budget, in this year's numbers, 1% would have been about $455,000. $455,000 per percent.
Per percent.
But it's going to make a difference for the budget, because these are budgeted numbers. So if our '23 budget goes up, it's gonna hold back more of that unassigned. Does anybody have any questions on that? What I really want people to understand out of this is, yes, we might have a $58,000 in, 58 million in fund balance, but 22 of that you really can't touch for general fund.
I think it would be helpful to explain why we hold that back. Why do we hold?
Well, we hold that
40%
back, basically, like I have there at the bottom, to avoid cash flow interruptions, generate interest income, eliminate need for short-term borrowings. If there's something that we want to go out and purchase, and it's, reasonable, we don't have to go to the bank and borrow $1 million. We can take it from that, or $2 million.
And if we have a
Catastrophic
event, that's our emergency.
That's our emergency fund, yes.
What do you consider a catastrophic event?
Hurricane.
Hurricane.
Major.
Catastrophic.
What was, it feels like a lifetime ago, what was the lowest you felt comfortable with fund balance going to? Was it 40%?
45 probably.
55?
I don't want us to be appreciably different than our population range, and if we are, we need a good reason for it. This is a table of numbers. You all, and Patty in particular, is very tolerant of me. Staring at this table is my good time. I don't expect this to be your good time. There are a couple of things that stick out to me when I look at this table. And one of them is and we only have 3 years worth of data up here. Here's one of the biggest things I see that it's on there, but you just need somebody to tell you it's there. I went back to 2007 forward. I didn't go back farther than 2007, although I'm curious and I may get bored one day and do it. Every single year, we've made a contribution to fund balance. Every single year, 2007 to present. So Great Recession in 2008, when the banks, hand wringing, I don't want to say fail, but when there was a banking system problem and we had a big recession, we contributed to fund balance that year. Pandemic, and oh my gosh, what's going to happen with consumer spending, and will people be able to pay their property tax bill? We made a contribution to fund balance that year. For the last 3-ish years in a row, we used to not use fund balance to what I'm going to refer to as balance our budget each year until about 3 years ago, and we started funding a capital project. So think of the quality time we spent with Stephen this morning. It takes years to get a capital project off the ground. 2021, okay, if you look at just the absolute total bottom numbers, in 2019, our fund balance was $56 million. We were AAA bond rated, we had plenty of fund balance. At the end of FY20, our fund balance was over $60 million. We made a contribution that year. FY21 is the first year when we actually use some of that fund balance. There is absolutely not a problem with using fund balance when you have a fund balance as high as ours. It's completely fine. At the most recent board meeting, you all took action to tell Anthony that it was your intent to make an offer on a piece of property that's $775,000. We didn't put that money in the budget for that. To avoid cash flow interruptions, we're not going to flinch if you say, yes, Anthony, do a budget amendment to pay for that property. The amount of money that we got in a fund balance our size is how we're going to fund that. That's absolutely okay. Using fund balance for a one-time capital reason is a good and legitimate thing to do. When I look at that, what I think of is we've contributed to fund balance every single year for a minimum of 13 in a row, and now because we're beginning to spend some of that money on these capital projects, it's beginning to turn down. $1.5 million, come on, man, we weren't in hard financial straits when it was 56, so going to 58 is not a problem. Funding projects, There is a point where I will advise you, I just don't think you ought to spend any more fund balance. And a model for me is what are other units roughly our size doing? Not necessarily in population. The local government commission gives us statistics on that. They'll start to give us statistics on other units not grouped by population size, but by size of total budget.
Well, 40% you'll find. That's the short answer. you're fine at 40%.
100% of the time, if you say, I think a good finance director, if you come to them and say, hey, would you like your cash flow, would you like to have fewer options or would you like to have more options? People will say they want more options. How low is too low? Don't get a whole lot lower than your average population range. But on one of her slides, she's going to show you we're the highest in our population range by percentage. So are we okay right now? Yes. How much, you have begun to spend it down. If you ask me to guess today, now, we adopted budget this year saying we'd spend some more of it down again. Today, right now, do I think we'll get enough of those projects along to have spent some of it? I'm not sure yet. Today, there's 4 months left of this year. I'm not sure the rate at which we'll be able to spend it down, so we'll see.
And you're going to show us that, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, you had a thought?
You're going to show us that average population numbers?
Yep.
That's it.
Well, we kind of took that one out, but Bobby's got it. To be honest, we kind of took it out because there's debt.
Ultimately,
Didn't you hide that?
we're in good
I
position.
think we can show it to you, or certainly we can send you the link to the local government commission's website. which
I
shows
feel
you.
like we do.
I don't think, we didn't hear that that was a particular passion of some of you folks. Now, Mayor Ann Arundel wanted to talk about it.
It was a passion.
I felt compelled to defend it, and it gives us funding options. Now, you spend it all down and you have fewer spending options and you just have less options.
Maybe at the break, we can dig it out and find it, but we're in good shape. Is the short answer. 40% is good.
Commissioner Boone, did you have a question?
Right. Jackie, first of all, I do not want to debate this with you at all.
I dare you.
Yeah, I don't want to do that at all.
Y'all don't have as much passion for this as I do.
But you
Mr.
say Huntersville is okay.
Mhm.
Do you think we're the best in the state?
The statistics would show that.
So we're not just okay, we're really pretty darn good. So to keep our AAA bond rating, we're 40% now. Would we keep our AAA bond rating if we went to 25%?
We have a financial advisor who is exceptionally bright. And my interpretation of what he has said in the past is, if you went from 40 to 25, especially now that you've begun to spend it, that would suggest a level of intent to spend at a rapid pace that would concern bondholders about whether or not you could exert the fiscal discipline to stop doing that. That was not a yes/no answer on purpose. There are plenty of our size AAA bond-rated agencies that have 25%. So there's not a yes/no answer to that, in my opinion.
Well, I just think that we're looking at a pretty big ticket here this afternoon that we're going to have to pay, and we've got some money in our checking account that 40%, is it 35, is it 25? It's something that we're going to have to address. 40, we're just sitting there looking at the cash, and we're going to need to pay something out of that.
And you were here late on this afternoon. Obviously, we got some big decisions. Whether you change that policy and all is really not going to drive it at the end of the day. So once you sort of hear where we are and all the projects that are coming out of the pipeline, we'll have to make some tough decisions with the CIP, and some of that's going to be timing and moving. Others going to be, you're going to hear referendum, or else shut it down. You just can't continue, these $10 million projects. Simple to me, if you got $58 million in the bank, and you got, I don't know how much, $120 million worth of projects out there, I don't care how, you can't pay for it like that. So we'll have a lot of that discussion this afternoon, but we got some big decisions to make.
So our fund balance policy is based on a percentage of budget. Well, if one year your budget's $50 million and the next year it goes up to $55 million, the percentage of budget that you're setting aside and not touching grew because your budget grew. So do you want to keep it tied to that? I don't know. Okay, so the two highlighted rows, I didn't even get to those two. Unassigned is that 40% number. The capital projects that's highlighted in yellow, do you notice that we were 11 million and then we went down to 8 million? We went down to 8 million because 45% of a higher budget number caused us to put more in the $20 million bucket. And the capital projects is just what's left over after you calculate that unassigned number. So it's just what's left over. So last year, we said, we don't want to set aside 45 anymore, we only want to set aside 40. And when we did that, that's why 20 million became 18, and we're setting aside 11 for a capital purpose. Our fund balance policy says everything over 40%, we will set aside and hold for a capital reason. As you continue to balance the budget for capital reasons, that number will go down. To me, here's the parallel that makes sense to me. When I first got my Fitbit, it's automatically programmed that your number of steps a day is 10,000 steps a day. If every single day you're getting in 15,000 steps a day, you're blowing that goal out of the water. You're doing great. But I'm a tripper. What if you trip and sprain your ankle, break your leg? You're on crutches, you're not doing 10,000 steps a day, then is a goal that you need to aspire to. So as we continue to spend down our fund balance, whatever number you pick, 25%, 40%, eventually it's going to be a goal you'll see in the 5-year forecast. There's at least 52 projects that we talk about working on in the next 5 years. There's not a funding source for every single one of those, so you would blow through the fund balance in a big fat hurry. You just would, and in those 5 years, you'd blow through it. And so you're just gonna have to figure out what your funding sources are. Could play too long on that side.
I think it's lunchtime.
Oh, no, debt.
Mr. Roberts?
Maybe we can get through a debt schedule and budget calendar,
Yeah.
and
That's
we'll
easy.
save the
Yeah.
5-year forecast update to after we
I
come
think
back
that's
on.
a great idea.
Okay, this debt schedule, what I'm showing here is on the left are all our different debt pieces. Police building, general obligation bonds, and refunding, and the lobs. So one thing I want to highlight is the Pinnacle Bank, we refunded that this year. If you go down to where it says Bond Series 2013-2000, refunded 2021, that's when we did. And then we refunded, yes, thank you, we refunded the lobs. So those are all with Pinnacle now, okay? Now, what I did this year in this worksheet is I showed you the FY 2023 payments. So those payments, right there, those payments are the ones that we're gonna pay in this year's budget. As opposed to,
Does your pointer work?
doesn't work, that's Bobby
The
over
green
there.
light doesn't work? You-
Push it.
It hasn't been working.
Yeah, I'm not the only one.
Maybe slam it up against the wall a couple times.
So the 2023, that's what we're going to pay in this year's budget. So we're going to pay this year $5,055,060 in debt, in interest and debt service payments. Then on if you go to the far right, the 6/30/22, that's showing, thank you, Bobby, that's showing our outstanding balance. So we're going to have an outstanding balance in debt of $39 million. The ones that we can refund, we've refunded because we can only refund after 10 years. So you can see that column that says callable, we can't refund any more of those because we've already done it. So the next one we could do would be in 26 and in 30.
Now, you eagle eye people, in previous years, when we look at this slide, that column that says FY '23 debt, it would have shown FY '22 debt. So we're telling you exactly what we will fund. In the current year's budget, we've slipped a new title in there on you. So because we refunded debt in FY '22, we're showing you how much we'll need to budget next year because some of those debt service payments are lower because that's the whole reason why we refunded it.
Right. Quick question on refunding. Can you describe what that means?
So I think the closest parallel is when you refinance your house because interest rates are lower. So we went to the debt market and said we'd like to pay off that which is eligible and how low an interest rate will you give us, and some of our interest rates have a true interest cost in the 1 to 1.5.
Right, that's in that all true interest cost rate. It's right there.
I have a debt question. I'll throw it now because it'll probably need to be for later too. What is the most amount of debt the town has ever been in, and what's the least amount of debt we have ever been in?
I don't know the lease number. I think we probably got close to having the total highest amount we've ever had outstanding when we issued the FY '20 issue. I'm gonna guess it was in the 45 million range.
That was 15 million, so.
So 45 million is the most we've ever been in debt?
I think it's in the neighborhood of 45
Okay.
million, yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the next calendar is just our standard budget calendar. We took off all the budget anyway. So, oh, sorry, I was like, what? So this calendar is very, very similar to the ones you've seen for the past 15 years. We've already sent out the February 4th package to the external agencies and to the departments. We're having our board planning meeting now. We're supposed to get our budget packages back from all the departments and the external agencies this Friday. In the next 2 weeks, we will meet, Anthony and Jackie and I will meet with each director, go through their budget, see what they're asking for, go through that. I think on April the 4th, we're gonna have the external agencies come in and give like a little 5-minute spiel in a pre-meeting. It's what we plan to do, just so they can tell you what they, what their organization does. Then on the 18th, we're gonna go over the 5-year forecast and the major CIP projects. Preliminary budget presented on May 2nd, work sessions, public hearing on May 16th, and then budget adopted hopefully on June 6th. Yes.
Was it last year, the 5-year financial forecast meeting started as a pre-meeting that went into a post-meeting?
Probably.
So should we allot more time for that? Because you know that's gonna be the hot topic.
You should allot more time for that on that meeting because the county has approached us and asked when can they come up and discuss with us what the FY '24 reval process will be like, and we have committed to them to have them on that meeting.
Could we not just have a special meeting for all things finance?
I think that's a
I
great
think we
idea.
have before. Everyone's super excited.
And another thing up there, we'll have, it says no dates, but, obviously work sessions with the board as needed, so
We
dates.
could
and
do it
that,
at one of those
too.
too.
And you'll hear a lot on the CIP today.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, so last year, Lance and I were still kind of the new ones, but we have a new board, and I want to make sure, my first year, I had 100 and something questions, I think, on my first budget. I want to make sure any questions, concerns they have, the Jackie stuff to me is fun to listen to, so I don't mind it, but I want to make sure we're giving them the proper conversations, just because we all, have had the experience. I want to give them the time frame where they don't feel rushed.
Well,
Absolutely.
and I think that it's also going to be important for them to meet with Jackie and Patty offline as well. So you all use those resources too. Let's pack in as many meetings as we need, but then let's all do our own homework as well.
Because those preliminary, like the board work sessions is when we would specifically, in that May timeframe, Stacy, is where we would specifically talk about, the police budget or that type, any departments. Like Anthony said, we're going to go into those detailed CIP, not the but the overall CIP by project today too.
We got all the time you need, so whatever y'all need, we'll make it happen.
Do we have a specific deadline we have to pass the budget by end of June?
You have to have a budget by June 30, or you have to have an interim budget. I've never been affiliated with an interim budget. If it's hard to do one time, why do you do it more than one time?
June 30. All right, that's it for me.
Larry, ready to do lunch?
Yes, let's do lunch.
What time are you gonna be back?
Can we do 30 minutes? 12:35?
Sounds good.
Does that work? Okay.